Tyrion Lannister's breath plumed before him like dragon smoke, as he urged his shaggy gelding up the frost-silvered hill that overlooked Winterfell's sprawling walls. Dawn lingered pale on the horizon, the sky a tired bruise of violet and ash. But he had been awake long before the castle stirred. Restless thoughts had hounded him from the depths of a too-soft bed. Thoughts of monsters clad in his father's smile, of a brother sliding into madness by inches, of a sister grown sharp as Valyrian steel. He rode out to escape them, seeking in the sharp air some clarity impossible within stone corridors that smelled of distant lion musk and northern hearth smoke. He found instead the silence of a kingdom still dreaming, and in that silence room to think. Below him, Winterfell sprawled like a patient giant beneath a blanket of snow. Tower tops poked through the white as drowned men's fingers claw through ice, and faint wisps of smoke curled from chimneys, testaments to life huddled around hidden fires. Even at this early hour, sentries paced the battlements, boots crunching slow and steady, the old walls keeping watch as they had for 8,000 restless years. Tyrion often wondered whether those stones remembered more than the men who guarded them. He dismounted, joints aching, and shuffled to the summit's edge. A stand of bare birches framed the view. Their silver trunks caught the dawn's frail light. Somewhere, a raven croaked, ruffling black wings. Tyrion listened to its ragged call, feeling oddly kin to that stark-feathered creature. Small, misliked, forever cawing truth that tall men found inconvenient. He had spent 3 weeks among the Starks, nominally a guest, though he felt rather more like a traveling curiosity. Ned Stark's brood fascinated him. Solemn Robb, clinging to responsibility like a child, hefting his father's sword. Bright-eyed Arya forever smudged with dirt and defiance. Sansa soft as summer butter, yet eager to please. Little Rickon, wild as an unbroken pup. Bran, thoughtful and hungry for stories. And then there was Jon Snow, the bastard. Quiet, proud, gentle as soft-fall snowpack hiding a ridge of granite. Tyrion had met bastards aplenty in port brothels and city gutters, but none quite like Jon. It was that boy who had drawn him from bed. Jon had taken the night's watch on the eastern parapet and would be returning to the great hall soon. Tyrion wanted a word before the bustle of breaking fast smothered opportunity. Topics danced behind his eyes like candle flame. The feel of the cold wall pressing against a man's soul. The weight of vows Jon was so eager to swear. The bitterness beneath the boy's calm whenever someone said, "Snow," with a twist of contempt. Tyrion preferred conversations unhurried by onlookers. Secrets ripened best in pre-dawn silence. A crunch of boots announced another presence. He turned to see Maester Luwin trudging up the slope, gray robes flapping. Snow twinkled in the maester's beard. A leather satchel thumped his hip. Tyrion inclined his head. "Maester, you keep curious hours." "Do you, my lord?" Luwin's tone held no reproach. "I bring Princess Bran letters to Lord Stark." "The ravens arrive at dawn." Tyrion quirked a brow. "From King's Landing." Luwin's eyes narrowed a fraction, just enough to betray caution. "And elsewhere. The wider realm rarely sleeps, even when Winterfell does." He patted the satchel. "Old friends send news of old questions." Tyrion watched a raven wheel overhead, black silhouette against the paleening sky. "Questions, you say? I have a fondness for those. Answers tend to be disappointing, but questions, they promise infinite mischief." "Me?" The maester smiled, the slightest lift of lined cheeks. "Lord Tyrion, you remind me of my own students at the Citadel, ever prying into locks better left undisturbed." "Perhaps." Tyrion's gaze drifted downward, past the Godswood's bare crown, to the library tower rising behind the ancient heart tree. Yet sometimes a rusted lock shields rot that must be cleared before it fouls the grain. Luwin stiffened, snowfall gathering on his cowl. A maester must decide when knowledge serves the realm, and when it serves chaos. The Citadel teaches restraint. "My family teaches victory," Tyrion replied softly. "Restraint is a luxury lions rarely afford." He offered the maester a courteous nod. "Forgive my musings, Maester Luwin. We both have tasks before breakfast." He clambered back into his saddle and guided the gelding down the hill, snow crunching under hooves. Luwin remained atop the rise, a lone figure silhouetted by weak sun. Tyrion felt the man's gaze follow him all the way to the keep gates, as though wary that the dwarf would tuck away more than gossip in his saddlebags. Inside Winterfell, warmth greeted him, a gust of baked bread, pinewood smoke, and boiled oats. Servants scurried like mice, laying trenchers and lugging logs. Tyrion shed his cloak and stepped toward the fire pit, rubbing gloved hands together, when he saw Jon Snow descending the stair from the ramparts. His cheeks glowed red, eyes sharp in the torchlit corridor. He paused upon spotting Tyrion, surprise flickering into a small smile. "You're abroad early, my lord." "Takes more than goose down to keep me abed," Tyrion said. "Your watch ended?" Jon nodded. "The dawn watch. It is quiet, peaceful. One can think without interruption. Exactly why I wish to steal you." Tyrion gestured toward a side passage. "Walk with me?" Jon fell in beside him. They moved through corridors still hushed by morning, past stone archways carved with sentinel direwolves. Torches hissed and guttered. Their shadows danced like long-necked specters across flagstones. Tyrion kept his voice low. "You leave for the Wall in 2 days." "Eh?" Jon's reply held both pride and melancholy. "Uncle Benjen rides north on the morrow. I follow with the wagon train. Lord Stark has business in King's Landing, so he cannot escort me." "Your father's mind is aflame with other burdens," Tyrion said. "Yet he has love for you. Don't doubt that." Jon's mouth tightened. "Does love hide in silence?" "Sometimes. And sometimes in obsessions we cannot share." Tyrion glanced sidelong. "Tell me, have you ever wondered why Lord Stark never speaks of your mother?" Jon flinched. He hid it well, but Tyrion saw knuckles whiten. "Often. Yet I've stopped asking. He refuses, and the others know nothing." "What use is wondering when answers will never come? Answers can arrive when least expected," Tyrion said. He halted near a winding stair that led downward, rarely used. "My brother once told me, when you tear a city apart brick by brick, you inevitably discover rats that thought themselves safe. Secrets are the same. Care to explore a forgotten corner?" Jon examined the stair. "Where does it go?" "To the cellars," Tyrion said. "And deeper. An old crypt the Starks sealed generations ago. I found mention in a crumbling inventory last night. Wine casks, tools, and a chest of girlhood letters sent from the Eyrie." "Interested?" Jon looked torn. Finally he shrugged. "I have an hour before training with Sir Roderick. Lead on." The stair spiraled into darkness. Tyrion produced a stubbed candle and flint, coaxing flame. Light leapt across damp stone. Their footsteps echoed as they descended, dust motes shimmering. At the base sprawled a corridor strung with ancient webs. The air smelled of slate and something older, earth long undisturbed. They passed rusty rakes and broken shields, remnants of harvests and wars long past, until Tyrion knelt before an iron-bound door. A broken padlock dangled from its hasp. He set his weight against the timber. Hinges shrieked. Beyond lay a cramped chamber lined with rotted barrels and empty shelves. In the candle's halo sat a single strongbox, wrought iron pitted by rust. Jon crouched. "You planned this." "I sensed a forgotten room begs for company." Tyrion tugged a small lockpick from his sleeve, one of many tools he carried for mischief, and set to work. The mechanism groaned, then surrendered. He eased the lid open. Inside lay parchment scrolls, their ribbons dry as old ivy, and atop them a slender leather folio cracked by time. No jewels, no sword blades, only ink and hide. Jon lifted the folio, brow furrowing. "Who's writing?" Tyrion blew dust from a corner. The initials L.E. gleamed faintly. "Lyanna," he breathed. He almost dropped the book. Memories flashed. Robert Baratheon's red-rimmed eyes whenever he spoke her name. Whispers of a crown of winter roses. Songs sung by minstrels too drunk to hold secrets. "What is it?" Jon asked. "A ghost," Tyrion murmured. "The most powerful kind, one bound to paper." He unbuckled the strap and eased back the cover. Inside lay pages of flowing wolf-grace script, some stained by what might have been tears. Tyrion scanned the first lines, pulse hammering. My dearest Ned, I pray you find this should my voice be silenced. Jon shifted, uneasy. These belong to Lord Stark. Yes, Tyrion said. And to history. And to you, though you cannot yet see why. He swallowed. May I read aloud? Jon hesitated, then nodded. Tyrion chose a page dated late in Robert's Rebellion. The tower is fair, Ned. They call it the Tower of Joy. Though joy feels far from me. Rhaegar guards us with knights sworn to him. But he treats me with kindness. I confess, brother, I have come to love him. Do not think me bewitched. I am no maiden coaxed by songs. I have seen his heart, and it is gentle. Tyrion looked up. Jon's face was stark, unreadable. Another passage spoke of war's thunder drawing nearer, of a child quickening, of fear that Robert would kill them all. I don't understand, Jon whispered. Lyanna died. Robert loved her. Love can warp into hatred when denied, Tyrion said gently. But keep listening. He turned to the final page. Promise me, Ned, if I do not live, swear you will guard our son. He must never face Robert's wrath. Tell him enough to know he is loved, nothing more. Better a bastard in the snow than a dead dragon in the south. Rhaegar would forgive me this, I hope. I hear his music in the quiet hours, and pray the song reaches our child. Promise me? Yet. Tyrion's mouth went dry. Jon's fists clenched at his sides. Son? He rasped. Her son? Tyrion closed the folio. If the letters speak true, Lyanna bore a child by Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, a son hidden from Robert's fury. Ned Stark took that secret to his grave, or planned to. Jon staggered back. No. No. Jon. Tyrion's voice softened, cut by wonder rather than pity. Your eyes are gray, yes? But there's a cast of violet when the light catches. I saw it the first night by the fire. Your hair. Dark, yet when sun touches it, I swear I glimpse a gleam of silver. He stepped closer. There are truths parents bury to keep their children breathing. Jon's breath came ragged. You're saying, I'm this child. I cannot be certain. Tyrion extended the folio. But the pieces fit. Why else would Ned Stark bear the shame of a bastard he never sired? He was an honorable man. Honor, however, bends when blood calls louder. Jon shook his head, as though flinging off invisible webs. It's madness. Proof. There must be proof. There may be, Tyrion said. More letters, perhaps. Or in the Citadel's birth registries, if someone dared forge them. Or in the words of dying knights should any still draw breath. I know knights in King's Landing who served the King's Guard that year. Jaime among them. Questions could be asked. Damardori knows. Jaime Lannister. Jon's voice dripped disbelief. Even my brother's vanity might yield to curiosity if I prod him. He squeezed Jon's shoulder. We rush nothing. You asked for proof. We shall collect it brick by brick. Meanwhile, you ride north. Hold this secret as you would a drawn blade. Never flaunt it, but know it is yours. Though. Jon's eyes glimmered. A storm of fear, awe, and something like fury. If it is true, all I know changes. Everything, Tyrion agreed. Yet no change comes without pain. Steel is forged in fire. Perhaps men are too. Footsteps echoed in the hall above. They keep waking. Jon tucked the folio beneath his cloak. We should return. Tyrion extinguished the candle. Shadows swallowed the chamber once more. As they climbed, his mind raced ahead. To the Red Keep septic secrets. To dragons sleeping beneath men's feet. To a lion's paw closing around knowledge, sharp enough to cut the iron throne from its moorings. Marked down. The morning moved sluggish as frozen honey. Tyrion feigned jovial chatter at breakfast, though thoughts churned beneath his witty barbs. Jon sat silent, occasionally touching a hidden lump beneath his doublet. Tyrion's gaze swept the high table. Ned Stark absent, closeted with Maester Luwin. Catelyn faintly annoyed by the dwarf's presence. Robb teasing Bran about archery. Arya flicking crumbs at Sansa. They lived in an eddy of routine, unaware of the torrent ready to drown them. Later, Tyrion wandered the library tower. Sunlight spilled through narrow windows, catching dust motes dancing like golden embers. Shelves rose higher than castle walls, stuffed with vellum and leather thick with secrets. Tyrion scaled ladders, scanning spines. He sought ledgers from Robert's first year. Records of noble births, pardons, quiet beheadings. History wrote in blood and ink alike. He found a brittle tome bound in mottled hide, stamped with the stag and lion of King Robert's early reign. Within, scribes had recorded each grant of land and title following the rebellion. Flipping pages, Tyrion noted an entire section excised. Razor cuts, leaving ragged stumps. Someone had removed entries from the months after the trident. Cheap trick, but telling. He slid the tome beneath his arm. Descending, he nearly collided with Sansa. She curtsied. So proper for so young a girl. Good morrow, Lord Tyrion. Lady Sansa, your radiance rivals the sun upon fresh snow. She blushed. My lady mother seeks you. She asked that I bid you to the solar. Tyrion sighed inwardly. Did she mention why? No, my lord. Only that haste would be appreciated. She offered a sweet smile, then flitted down the corridor like a startled bird. Catelyn Stark awaited before a mullioned window, hands clasped, her gaze cut sharper than an eerie wind. She wasted no courtesies. Lord Tyrion, Maester Luwin tells me you were exploring our lower cellars at dawn. I do relish architecture, Tyrion said. The bowels of Winterfell possess a rugged beauty. Her jaw tightened. Those areas are sealed for a reason. Structural dangers. Indeed. Yet a locked door is a whisper begging for ears. What did you seek? Tyrion bowed slightly. Merely wine to toast your son's impending departure. I think not. She stepped closer. My lady sister once warned me Lannisters collect secrets as spiders collect flies. Tell me plainly, what did you find? Tyrion met her eyes. In them he saw suspicion, edged by fear. She suspects, he realized. Not the truth, perhaps, but fragments. A letter, he said, choosing half-truth. Old. Of personal significance to your lord husband. I returned it to his care. May I see it? I fear not. He softened his tone. Its words are not mine to share, Lady Stark. Ask your husband. Catelyn's lips thinned. You overstep. I breathe, Tyrion replied quietly. That alone to some is overstep. She studied him a long moment. Very well, she said at last. But know this. My house guards its own. No harm will come to Ned or his children by your meddling. No. Tyrion inclined his head. A reassuring promise. He withdrew, pulse quickened. Catelyn's warning mattered little. His father's shadow loomed larger, and he sensed Tywin would relish any excuse to hone that shadow into steel. Yet Tyrion could not turn back. The melody set by Lyanna's forgotten hand played on, and he, ever eager for a tune, must follow. Mark down. Enjahande. Kali. That afternoon snow fell in lazy skeins. Tyrion watched Jon spar with Robb in the yard, wooden practice swords clacking like antlers. Jon moved with fluid precision, each parry a syllable in an unspoken language. Robb fought with robust confidence, his laughter bright. Yet Tyrion saw tension in Jon's shoulders, a coil wound too tight. When Ser Roderick dismissed them, Tyrion beckoned Jon to a quiet archway. I pilfered something else. He produced the excised pages from the royal ledger. Entries missing from Robert's first year. Someone thought them dangerous. Shall we discover why? Jon wiped sweat from his brow, eyes sharpening. You keep finding pieces, but pieces don't prove true. Yet a puzzle emerges. Tyrion unfolded a page. It listed pardons issued to loyalists who surrendered after the trident. Among them, Lord William Dustin, Sir Oswell Went, Sir Gerald Hightower. Names intertwined with Rhaegar's Kingsguard. Yet a line had been struck through Sir Gerald Hightower's likeness by heavy ink, and beside his name, barely legible, the words, Child Secured, Tower of Joy. Jon traced the fated letters. Tower of Joy, he murmured. That's where Lyanna died, I've heard. Tyrion nodded. 7 fought there, Ned Stark and 6 companions against 3 of the King's Guard. The songs say the tower fell, and with it, hope of Targaryen restoration. But if a child was secured... Jon's breath misted in the cold archway. Why bring this to me? Because secrets breed sickness, Tyrion said. Best they see daylight, and because you deserve choice. Choice denied you by birth, by lies, by lords who think pawns never feel. He touched the ledger page. If truth places a crown on your brow, that is your burden. If it merely explains a lifetime of cold shoulders, that is solace. Either way, knowledge is the only coin worth hoarding. No one? Jon closed his fist around the page. I leave for the walls soon. Walls guard and cages alike, Tyrion murmured. And vows bind, but oaths taken in ignorance are chains. Learn the truth before you forge them. Footsteps neared. They parted, slipping pages into pockets like thieves. Markdown. That night, snow thickened into a blizzard. Wind howled through arrow slits, rattling shutters, moaning down chimneys like the old gods lamenting loss. Tyrion dined late. Wine mulled with clove warming his blood. Outside, the courtyard lay empty. Torches sputtered against gusts. He lingered by a window until a shadow moved. Jon, cloak billowing as he crossed toward the godswood. Curiosity won all. Tyrion donned a fur-lined coat and followed. The godswood beckoned, branches heavy with snow. Heart trees face weeping icy tear streaks. Jon knelt before the ancient weirwood, brow pressed to its blood-red bark. Snowflakes melted in his hair like shy stars. Tyrion waited, respectful. At length, Jon stood, turning toward the dwarf. You followed, guided by wine and worry. Tyrion shrugged. What says the old gods? Nothing. Jon's voice cracked. Or perhaps they scream, and I'm too small to hear. Tyrion stepped beside him. I've heard silence can be an answer. Jon stared at the heart tree's carved eyes. If I am son to Rhaegar and Lyanna, I am both dragon and wolf. Bastard of neither, heir of both. Does that make me enemy to myself? Perhaps it makes you bridge, Tyrion suggested. Dragons burn, wolves endure. Together they might thaw winter. Jon barked a humorless laugh. You speak in riddles. So do the gods. Tyrion folded arms. I ask one thing, keep believing in yourself, even if you cannot yet name who that self is. Jon opened his mouth, closed it, then said, Will you help me uncover the rest? Letters, witnesses, whatever it takes? With pleasure, Tyrion answered. But caution. My family's ears are long. My sister's claws longer. I'll remember. Tyrion gestured skyward. The storm worsens. Let's seek hearth and ale. They trudged back through drifts, side by side. 2 figures dwarfed by towering oaks and looming secrets. Snow swallowed their footprints almost at once. Marked down. Over the next day and night, fragments multiplied. Tyrion bribed an archivist for a copy of High Septon Maynard's sealed marriage annulments. Among dusty scrolls he found a note referencing Rhaegar dissolving union with Elia of Dorne. Maynard had annotated a second parchment. Remarried to Lyanna Stark, Dorne. The archivist thought it romantic gossip. Tyrion knew better. He smuggled copies into his satchel. Jon, meanwhile, cornered old Sir Roderick, asking of rebellions and legends. The knight, pleased perhaps to be asked, spoke of Ned returning from the south with a swaddled babe and sorrow in his eyes. He would not let the nurses near the child, Roderick recalled. Said the boy must remain by his side, till he was weaned. He never named the mother. Each clue knit together, tapestry of wolves and dragons. Yet proof enough to challenge a king still eluded them. Tyrion considered riding south with Ned Stark's party, leaving Jon to the wall, then returning after summoning chosen confidants. But the court was viper-thick with Cersei's suspicion and Littlefinger's grinning knives. One misstepped whisper could doom Jon before truth ever breathed free air. He needed allies beyond lions and wolves. Perhaps Varys, who valued information above crowns, could be coaxed to safeguard Jon's lineage. Or Daenerys, though across narrow seas, might one day claim a cousin rather than a rival. Tyrion smiled at the notion. Dragon siblings reuniting beneath shattered chains. But first, evidence. One link remained: Howland Reed, Ned's last surviving companion at the Tower of Joy. The Cranaglord hid in his soggy fastness, rarely seen. Yet, his children, Mira and Jojen, remained at Greywater Watch. Perhaps they might be found, persuaded. These schemes hummed behind Tyrion's wisecracking facade as he stood atop Winterfell's gatehouse to bid farewell. Benjen Stark led the column north. Jon, in fresh furs, mounted his gelding, ghost-trotting White Shadow beside. Snowflakes clung to the direwolf's fur like shards of moonlight. Tyrion raised a hand. Jon returned the gesture, eyes heavy with secrets. They had agreed on code words embedded in letters to pass news. As hooves clattered over the drawbridge, Tyrion's heart tugged oddly. He, who trusted few, had found a friend in Ned Stark's bastard. No, son of ice and fire. He felt pride, fear, and purpose entwined like roots beneath snow-burdened earth. When the last horse vanished beyond the trees, Tyrion turned toward the South Tower where Ned read his sister's letters alone. The Lord's face would be tear-streaked by now, grief resurrected from 15 years' silent grave. Tyrion would give him hours before knocking. Some alliances required tenderness before hammer and anvil. He descended the rampart, boots crunching, while wind carried faint wolves' howls across the sky, mingled with a sound he couldn't name, perhaps beating wings, perhaps his own pulse, drumming for a future rewritten in ashen snow. Markdown. One away. Though the day waned, Tyrion did not seek Ned. Instead, he penned messages to Varys, to Oberyn Martell, brother of deceased Aelia, couched in riddles hinting at surviving Targaryen blood. He sealed them with a personal cipher known only to those men, and dispatched ravens before second thoughts could breed restraint. Secrets loved flight more than cages. Night fell, wind eased, and moons cast silver over Winterfell's courtyards. Tyrion found himself again in the library, staring at rows of tall shelves, as though each were a gate to some lost realm. Candle in hand, he wandered until a familiar scrape sounded behind. Ned Stark stepped from the shadows, holding the leather folio close to his chest. His gray eyes, so like Jon's, were red-rimmed. "You," he whispered, voice rusted with sorrow. "Why?" Tyrion inclined his head. "Because truths rot in darkness. I meant no harm. You could doom him." Ned's fingers clenched the folio. "Robert will kill any dragon spawn. My son lives only because none know." "Your silence saved him," Tyrion acknowledged. "Yet wars simmer still. If Robert falls, if Cersei or Joffrey ascend, will they show mercy? A hidden heir is threat to any throne. Secrets breed fear. Fear breeds daggers." Ned's shoulders slumped. "What would you have me do?" "Arm him with truth. Let him choose." Tyrion's tone softened. "Send trusted men to Howland Reed. Gather witness. Then bide your moment. The realm must see not a usurper, but a man of honor, tempered by Stark blood." Ned's gaze flicked upward, as though searching for guidance in the vaulted gloom. "You ask me to risk his life on the realm's forbearance. I ask you to trust your son's strength," Tyrion said, "and to trust that even a dwarf of Casterly Rock may value his life." Silence stretched. Finally, Ned exhaled. "You will ride south with me. Keep this counsel. Should word leak, I first," Tyrion finished. "Though I suspect my sister would savor the privilege." He smiled thinly. "I'll take precautions." Ned nodded, weary. "Then we walk a blade's edge together, Lannister?" Tyrion bowed. "Blades are honest things. I prefer them to webs." They parted without further word. Yet as Tyrion made for his chamber, thoughts whirled like snowflakes in storm wind. He knew Tywin haunted King's Landing for the tournament, soon to honor a young prince's name day. He knew Littlefinger sniffed coin in chaos, eager as any hound. He knew Cersei's smile left bruises deeper than fists. And he knew Varys would answer in kind, for Varys loved songs of hidden airs. Still, Tyrion felt exhilaration. For the first time since birth he pursued a cause not born of family pride or personal survival, but of something grander, a chance to tip the realm toward unforeseen balance. He, the broken sun, might birth unity of wolf and dragon. In his bedchamber he poured wine, toasted the night. Snow beat soft rhythms on shutters, like gentle applause. Tyrion raised his cup to Lyanna's ghost. "Your son rides amid shadows, my lady," he murmured, "but I will see him stride in sun." He drank, and outside the blizzard whispered over stone, swirling secrets into drifts that awaited spring thaw, when fire meets ice, and dormant seeds break the earth at last. Back, E. The road south began at dawn with the muffled thud of hooves against fresh snow, and the slow puffing of horses' breath in the brittle air. Winterfell dwindled behind them, a stark silhouette framed by the pinkening rim of sunrise. Thin pennons atop the battlements fluttered farewell like half-hearted hands. Ned Stark rode at the head of the column in a cloak of gray wool, silent as a stone sentinel, while Tyrion Lannister ambled several lengths back upon his shaggy gelding, flanked by half a dozen guards wearing Stark colors. The air smelled of pine and distant smoke, and for the first league no one spoke. Each rider locked in the private ceremony of departure, taking stock of what was left behind, whispering half-formed prayers for what lay ahead. Tyrion reflected, somewhat grimly, that he was leaving the only place in the Seven Kingdoms where he had lately felt something approaching peace. Winterfell's harsh beauty suited him, so too did the unvarnished honesty of northern men. The dwarfed son of Casterly Rock had worn neither mask nor armor in the Stark's hall. Against his own expectation, he had found respect where he expected only tolerant courtesy. Now he rode toward the churning miasma of King's Landing, toward choked alleyways, perfumed intrigues, and the sharp smile of his sister. A man could drown in such a city, and dwarves, he knew, were always the first to sink. Yet he carried purpose, and purpose buoyed him. The folio of Lyanna's letters lay hidden inside a second saddlebag. The excised ledger pages, High Septon Maynard's note, and other gleaned fragments were featherlight, but made the leather pouch on his hip feel weighted with iron. Somewhere further south, ravens sped toward Varys and toward Prince Oberyn Martell, each bearing the same cryptic invitation. If you desire justice, seek the truth born of winter roses. These were dangerous birds to loose upon the world, but danger was a current Tyrion must now ride. If he failed, Jon's secret might still die with him. But if he succeeded, dragons and direwolves both might yet escape the teeth of lions and stags. The first halt came at midday beside a half-frozen stream that coiled through an aspen grove. Ned dismounted wordlessly, knelt at the bank, and drank from cupped hands. He remained there for a long while, as though studying twin rippling reflections, the waters and his own conscience. Tyrion approached, boots crunching on the crusted snow. "Cold enough to numb the tongue," Tyrion said by way of greeting. An advantage, perhaps, if one fears voicing unwelcome thoughts. He knelt, filled his own palm, and sipped. The water bit like needles. "Then again, I have rarely found cold sufficient to still your honor." Ned rose, wiping a wet streak from his beard. "Honor is a shield that grows heavier with each season," he murmured. "Sometimes I fear it will break my arm." "Better a broken arm than a broken soul," Tyrion answered lightly. "Though a man may need both arms hale if he intends to wield the truth we carry." Ned's gray eyes flicked to the guards ladling oat porridge from iron pots. "Not here," he said. "Nightfall. My tent." "I bow to your sense of theater," Tyrion replied, and turned away before Ned's frown could deepen. The quiet between them would endure until stars salted the sky. When they rode again, snow had ceased and pale sun edged through ragged cloud. The King's Road unwound before them in a strip of ragged white and mud. Abandoned save for a ragpicker's cart, they passed near dusk. Ned offered the ragpicker bread from Winterfell's stores. The stooped man bowed until his forehead brushed the muddy wheel. Tyrion watched the exchange with a curious pang. Generosity was a currency often spent in the north, spent rarely in the capital. He wondered whether the gods of the Seven rewarded such coins, or merely pocketed them. Indifferent. They made camp on a rise overlooking a sparse pine valley. Bronze braziers glowed like scattered embers between tents. Tyrion's quarters, a canvas wedge staked beside Ned's larger command pavilion, smelled of oiled leather and damp wool. The wind hissed through seams, rattling the tide flaps like thin drums. Ned arrived soon after moonrise, cloaked and hooded, carrying a wineskin whose plain hide bore no sigil. He dismissed the guard at Tyrion's entrance with a curt nod, stepped inside, and lowered himself onto a folding stool. Flamelight painted harsh lines beneath his eyes. Tyrion poured wine into 2 tin cups. The vintage was Dornish, a mellow red that had traveled north with him months earlier. Ned drank without comment. "I have read Lyanna's words 5 times, the Lord of Winterfell said at last. "My sister's voice." I had forgotten its cadence. He swallowed. "I dreamt of her last night. She was riding through a field of blue winter roses, smiling. I was a boy again, chasing her, trying to plait flowers into her braid." His voice caught on the word boy. When I woke, the world felt smaller. Grief hovered between them like a third presence, but Tyrion did not attempt sympathy. Grief such as Ned's was neither wand nor garment one could help him shed. Instead, he said, "Memory is the shape of what we have loved and lost. The shape can crush us or guide us. You must decide which." Ned turned the tin cup in his hands. "A shape cannot shield Jon. What you revealed may condemn him." Nendamasa. Hidden truths also condemn, Tyrion reminded. Cersei's spies multiply every year. Sooner or later one reads resemblance in Jon's features, the tilt of a brow, a stubborn jaw, and wonders why Ned Stark's bastard carries the suggestion of Valyrian twilight in his eyes. If word reaches King's Landing before us, rumor becomes dagger. Better we forge armor before the blow. Ned considered. We need proof Howland Reed will swear to. Proof that can brook no doubt even from Robert. He drew a slow breath. I will send a rider to Greywater Watch this night. Reed will meet us in the capital. Back door. Tyrion inclined his head. I shall write him a cipher confirming the urgency. And I have loosed ravens to men more skilled in gathering dangerous whispers than I. He smiled thinly. The spider spins fast when the web quivers. Varys, Ned muttered, distaste wrinkling his brow. I trust him less than any Lannister. Wise, Tyrion agreed. Yet the eunuch traffics in debts, not loyalties. If I owe him, he will deliver. He leaned forward. Oberyn Martell as well. He has bone to pick with Robert, with all who crushed Elia. If he learns Elia's children died while another of Rhaegar's blood lives, he may protect that blood as vengeance against the crown. Bandon. A shadow passed over Ned's face. I would not see the realm burn for vengeance. You may not have a choice, but if fires must rise, better we guide their course than choke on their smoke. Tyrion refilled Ned's cup, then his own. For now, Jon rides north beyond Robert's reach. We have time, weeks, perhaps months. We must spend them gathering stones before battle. Battle, Ned echoed softly. I have fought enough wars. You may yet fight the greatest. A war of secrets. No swords, only tongues and parchment. I fear it may prove bloodier than the trident. Ned sipped, grimaced at the taste, and set the cup aside. Thank you for the wine, Lord Tyrion. I'll return to my tent. He rose. At the flap, he paused. If the day comes when you tire of your family's shadow, the North remembers kindness. Tyrion managed a wry bow from his camp chair. If the day comes, I shall remind the North a dwarf's feet displace less snow than a lion's paw. Ned left without reply. Wind rattled the canvas. The brazier hissed as Tyrion poured the last of the Dornish vintage upon the coals, a libation to restless ghosts. The march south continued. Days blurred into a rhythm of hoofbeats, iron-shod wheels crunching ice, campfires, and the endless flank of dark pines sliding past like silent jury. Each morning Tyrion rose stiff-limbed, palms cracked and raw despite leather gloves. Each night he bent over parchment by candlelight, quill scratching like a mouse in straw. He composed letters to Varys in an elaborate cipher of japes and riddles, scrawled inquiries destined for Howland Reed, and drafted a delicate overture to a baron. A child of both dragon and wolf stirs within the realm's bosom. Ponder how justice might bloom beneath winter roses. He knew Oberyn's temper, knew the man would rage to taste salt of old betrayals. But rage could turn spears, and spears might guard Jon's budding claim. 3 days' ride from Winterfell, they reached the village of Whitfield on the King's Road, where black-thatched roofs hunched beneath winter weight. Ned ordered a midday respite, so horses could water at the half-frozen mill pond. Tyrion wandered through muddy lanes, noting the wary gazes of small folk peering from door slits. His golden hair glimmered like coin in the pallid sun. Villagers tracked it the way starving dogs tracked a butcher's cleaver. He sought the tavern, a lean structure leaning against a stable, and pushed inside to the stench of sour ale and damp straw. A handful of locals nursed mugs beside a smoking hearth. Conversation died at the sight of a Lannister. Tyrion claimed a stool, ordered mulled cider, and let the hush ferment. He was used to such silences. They were safer than laughter. From a corner, a bearded man in ragged leather shifted, lowering his mug. Tyrion's gaze flicked, caught the man's hand brush the hilt of a rusted dirk. A thief's eyes, weighing risk. Tyrion sipped his cider without lifting the hood of his cloak, but kept the man in peripheral watch. Long winters made men desperate. A dwarf in rich furs traveling with Starks might seem plump with coin. The bearded man's gaze crawled over Tyrion's purse string. He rose, ambled toward the privy corridor, feigning drunken stagger. Tyrion waited a beat, then slipped from his stool, cider abandoned, and followed. Beyond the corridor door the light dwindled to smoky gloom. Tyrion's boots squelched through rotted rushes. The bearded man turned abruptly, dirk flashing. "Your coin, lion." Tyrion halted, lips twisting almost fondly. "A dirk? At least polish it before you threaten." He raised empty palms. "Take the purse. Careful, it's heavier than it looks." The man's eyes darted. He lunged, dirk jabbing. Tyrion sidestepped. The blade scraped his cloak and bit wood. Tyrion's cuffed sleeve hit a narrowed dagger. He flicked it down, catching the man's wrist. The thief cursed, blade clattering. In the same heartbeat, 2 Stark guards burst into the corridor, swords drawn. Tyrion stepped back, breathing hard. "My lord." One guard barked. "I slipped," Tyrion said dryly. "Our friend here tried to catch me. Quite a Samaritan." The guards dragged the thief away, protesting. Tyrion retrieved his purse, still intact, then leaned against the wall to regain composure. The dance of knives left his heart hammering like a blacksmith's forge. He realized with disquiet that on the path he now walked, there would be blades sharper, wielded by hands far more deft. When he emerged, Ned stood by the tavern door, speaking to the innkeep. One glance at Tyrion's torn cuff told him enough. "We ride on," Ned declared. Within moments, his men remounted. Whitfield's villagers melted into doorways. That night, the wind shifted. Warmer air surged from the south. Snow turned to sleet, then cold rain, drumming atop taut canvas. The campfires hissed, spitting sparks. Tyrion huddled beneath wet furs, sleep elusive. Rain seeped through a seam, pattering his brow. He cursed softly, rolled to his side, and surrendered to restless dozing. In dreams he walked the crypts of Winterfell, torch in hand. Jon stood beneath Lyanna's statue, ghost pale, a wolf cub at his feet. Above them, stone kings loomed in silent judgment. Jon opened his mouth to speak, but his voice emerged as dragon song, haunting chords of harp and flame. The sound shivered the pillars. Dust cascaded. Tyrion reached to touch Jon's shoulder, but found only cold stone. The boy had become a statue, features blurred by time. Tyrion cried out. The song turned to shattering glass. He woke to thunder and the guards' shout. "Riders on the road!" Tyrion blinked away dream shadow and jerked upright. Rain hammered the tent. He heard hoofbeats thudding through mud, the clang of steel. Yanking on boots, he pushed through the flap into a welter of lantern-swung chaos. Ned stood near the fire circle, sword bared, rain running down his face like tears. Stark guards clustered, spear tips bristling toward dark shapes emerging from the storm. But the shapes wore gray and white cloaks, not hostile black. A Night's Watch patrol, led by a rangy ranger on a lathered Garon. Benjen Stark swung down, mud flying. His eyes found Ned's. "Brother," he rasped, voice raw from cold. I had to turn back. Ned lowered his sword, though tension still hummed. "What's happened?" Benjen wiped rain from his brow. 3 days north of the wall, my men and I found 2 corpses. Sir Waymar Royce and young Gerd. They'd gone missing a moon's turn ago. Bodies were wrong. His throat bobbed. White, cold as iron. Eyes blue as glacier ice. We burned them. My men swore the corpses moved. He spat rainwater. I dared not leave John amidst such talk. I left him at Castle Black, safe enough. But the old bear means to investigate. He asked for word to reach the hand. Ned sheathed ice slowly. I ride to King's Landing. John must remain at his post. Agreed, Benjen said. But I will accompany you. The wall's shadows grow long. His gaze slid to Tyrion. The dwarf saw the wall. He can attest. I saw only stone and sky, Tyrion said quietly. But I heard the fear in ranger songs. He met Benjen's eyes. If dead men walk, the realm must know. Benjen nodded once. Rain coursed through his grizzled hair. Tyrion's mind raced. The threat of others complicated every plan. If winter demons marched, who would care for bastard lineage? Yet prophecy whispered that a song of ice and fire would stand against darkness. Was that song not John himself? Wolf and dragon, forged for a winter beyond men's reckoning. If so, then truth must surface before winter swallowed crowns and castles alike. The camp settled after tense greetings. Benjen's men were fed, tents allotted. Tyrion retired, but sleep remained distant. He listened to rain drum patterns on canvas, and heard within them footfalls of something vast approaching. Eventually, exhaustion claimed him. Dawn broke clammy, clouds bruised purple. Rain eased to mist. Tyrion packed his bedroll, stepping around puddles, when Benjen found him by the tether post. The ranger's wolf-gray eyes appraised the dwarf. "John spoke highly of you," Benjen said. Tyrion fastened his saddlebag. "I spoke plainly to him." "Few do. Plain speech is rare coin." Benjen crossed arms. He seemed troubled. Silent at night. Ghosts never left his side. "He faces vows that will chain his life," Tyrion said. "I counseled him to know himself before he swore." Benjen studied him, frown deepening. "If you know aught that burdens him, speak." Tyrion hesitated. Trust, he remembered, was the mortar of alliances. Benjen was brother to Ned, uncle to John, and a man of the watch. Oath sealed his throat as surely as ice. At last Tyrion said, "I know only that secrets plague John more than frostbite. Let him find his footing, Lord Stark. When the time comes, he will stand taller for discovering the strength within." Benjen considered, then nodded curtly. "See you keep him safe from afar." He turned, mounting his Garon. The column moved. Overcoming mud-slick ground, they covered leagues slower than planned. Benjen rode alongside Ned, their silhouettes like twin shades of younger and older selves. Both stern, both burdened. Tyrion kept near, ears pricked for scraps of talk. He heard whispers, white shadows, and cold winds rising. The words wove dread through the ranks. At twilight they reached Moat Caelan's moss-mottled ruins where green water pooled among collapsed ramparts. Fires sprang beneath, toppled giants' heads carved in stone. Tyrion roamed broken corridors, broken further by vine and root. He imagined crackling torches in ages past, when first men held the neck against Andal steel. He heard bootsteps echoing. Benjen approached. The ranger rested a hand on a crumbling archway. This fort once stood invincible. Winter and tide humbled it. Tyrion traced lichen with a gloved thumb. Nothing built by man stands forever. True. Benjen's gaze cut sideways. The Watch fears what the living forget. Southrun lords laugh at ghost stories. But we've seen tracks no horse leaves. Tyrion met his eyes. "I believe you." Benjen exhaled white mist. "Then hear this. My patrol followed those corpses' trail to an ice gorge north of the wall. We found a sigil carved in frost. A swirl of 6 arms around a dot. Old tongues call it the meander of the others. Rainwater dripped through cracks overhead. I've seen that swirl once before, on an obsidian shard kept by Maester Aemon. He said it belonged to the children of the forest. Oh, gun. A symbol older than houses, Tyrion murmured. And older than the wall. Benjen nodded. If the dead rise, all else becomes ash. Houses, crowns, bastards, shame. None of it matters. That is where you err, Tyrion said quietly. It matters because the realm will only unite against the night if given reason greater than ancient terrors. A dragon wolf prince may be such reason. Benjen stiffened. Explain. But Tyrion shook his head. Not yet. Trust me when I say Jon's life is more entwined with the wall's fate than any of us guessed. Go. Benjen's yaw worked. My trust is earned by truth. And mine by patience. Tyrion offered a thin smile and stepped away, rain-flecked torchlight sliding over his scarred features. He felt Benjen's gaze burn between his shoulder blades until he vanished around a broken tower. That night, Ned convened a small council beneath a tattered awning. Benjen, Tyrion, Jory Castle, and Maester Luwin joined. A map unrolled on a barrel head, pins marking King's Landing, Greywater Watch, and Castle Black. Ned's finger tapped Greywater. If Reed rides south, he must pass Seaguard. We'll send word there instructing Lord Jason Lannister to lend escort. Luwin added, a raven to Old Town might unearth Maester Maynard's sealed books. Confirmation of annulments? Risky, Tyrion said. Archmaesters trade rumors like sailors trade clap. Cersei's informants nest in the Citadel. Ned considered. Then we find a trusted novice. Someone unknown. Luwin? I can compose a cipher only chain-wearers understand. The Maester replied. I have a former student in the Ravenry. Do it, Ned ordered. Benjen leaned over the barrel. And the wall? Mormont expects more men, supplies. Winter closes early. I will raise the matter to Robert, Ned promised. The crown can spare gold for the night's watch, Tyrion muttered. The crown can spare gold for little save feasts and tournaments. Better appeal to the hand. He met Ned's eyes, wry. That would be you. Benjen huffed amusement. Ned shot Tyrion a look equal parts annoyance and agreement. The meeting disbanded into dripping gloom. Days bled onward. At the neck, grim marsh fumes rose. Insects buzzed like summer ghosts despite the chill. Tyrion kept parchment hidden from the damp inside waxed-oiled leather, but still edges curled. He composed a cautious essay on dragonglass, its rumored use against creatures of ice, and resolved to search the royal smithy for black volcanic glass. Perhaps it might become part of the armor they forged for Jon. Literal and symbolic both. One afternoon the sky cleared to brittle blue. Sun glared off pools, scattering dazzles. The column encountered a merchant barge drifting south along the Green Fork, heavy with barrels of saltfish. The merchant recognized Ned Stark, bowed from the deck, and offered dried cod in tribute. Tyrion pocketed several pieces. Salted fish kept, and coinless gestures bred goodwill. He took time to chat with the bargeman, gleaning news. Wolves sighted near the Twins. Frey flags mustered. Rumors Lord Walder prepared for visitors. Tyrion filed these scraps away. Nothing in the Riverlands happened absent Walder Frey's calculus of advantage. Camp that night lay within view of the twin spindly towers, their torchlit windows like watchful glowing eye sockets. Ned considered crossing but chose to camp upriver. Better to negotiate with Walder by daylight. Tyrion could not fault him. The old goat might exact a toll, even on a lord of Winterfell. Tyrion's dreams were restless again. He stood in a hall of statues, each face a shifting blend of Stark and Targaryen features, eyes changing from gray to violet and back. They whispered names. Jaehaerys, Aegon, Daeron, and the whisper became wind that scattered the statues to ash. He woke sweating, though frost rimmed his blanket. Approaching the twins, they were met by Ser Stevron Frey atop a lank horse. Ser Stevron smiled thinly through beard whiskers and offered safe passage, provided that Lord Stark's men leave weapons peace-bonded and that a modest fee be rendered to cover bridge maintenance. Ned haggled. cool-voiced. Tyrion slipped silver into Sir Stevron's palm with a quip about dwarves costing half freight. Stevron's laugh rasped like a file against wood. But the gates opened. Inside the crossing hall, Walder Frey greeted them perched upon a high-backed chair like a vulture too lazy to hunt. His sons and grandsons fanned behind. A hierarchy of pinched faces and twitchy fingers. Walder's roomy gaze pricked toward Tyrion. "A lion among wolves and trout," he cackled. "Have you come to eat my chickens, imp?" "Alas, my appetite runs to quail these days," Tyrion replied pleasantly. "Your lordship's poultry is safe." Walder snorted phlegm. "Small bird for small man." His attention swung to Ned. "Word reached me of the king's summons. You ride to King's Landing to sit at his right hand, tarry if you must. My beds are clean enough." His grin showed brown stumps. "Perhaps I'll wed you to one of my granddaughters. You're only half a corpse after all." "Nenexenono." Benjen bristled, but Ned answered smoothly. "Your beds are an honor, Lord Frey, but our road is long. A night is all we require." Walder shrugged. "So be it." His gaze trapped Tyrion again. "Watch that one." Lannisters plant golden seeds that sprout iron hooks. "An inspiring gardening tip," Tyrion said. "I shall pass it to my sister." Walder's wheeze echoed like a bellows. The audience ended. Servants escorted the travelers to modest chambers. Tyrion's room overlooked the river's churn. Far below, water slapped stone pilings, reminding him of Blackwater Bay's tidal suck. He pulled a tin flask of brandy from his bag and drank small warming sips while studying the moonlit current. Somewhere downriver the current joined the Trident, then the sea. Water born of northern snows would kiss Dornish sand come summer. Everything connected, ice to fire, wolf to dragon. He sat at a narrow writing desk, quill poised, drafting a letter to Jon. They had agreed on innocuous phrasing. "The pup chases birds along the wall," meaning the plan advances. But Tyrion hesitated. What comfort could words offer a boy facing walking corpses? He instead wrote, "Remember the stories we told beneath the godswood. Hold them close, and hold your sword closer. A time will come when both are needed." He signed with the sigil of a paw wreathed in flame. Another prearranged cipher, and sealed the parchment. They crossed the river at dawn, the twins' iron-grated portcullis rising with a shriek. Walder Frey's brood waved from battlements like a field of weeds, bending beneath wind. Tyrion kept a hand on his purse until the last stone of the bridge lay behind. The riverlands opened in drab winter splendor, rolling brown fields patchworked by dark hedgerows, leafless copses spiking the horizon, distant plumes of chimney smoke above villages snuggled into riverbends. Here the road dried, rutted mud hardening under weak sun. Their pace quickened. Tyrion spent hours riding beside Maester Luwin debating ancient Valyrian steel, forging traditions to maintain pretext, but Luwin seldom strayed from the safety of treatises. The Maester did, however, mention rumors from Old Town of unusual activity among the pale scholars of the section glass candles. Obelisks said to glow only before great upheaval. Tyrion filed that away with a shiver. One evening, while camped near an abandoned sept, whose roof had caved under a lightning strike, Tyrion found Benjen seated alone upon a fallen altar, sharpening his sword. Sparks flew each drag of stone. Tyrion approached, noting ghostly pews warped by rain. Candles guttered in broken alcoves, stubbed remnants left by pious travelers. "May I join?" Tyrion asked. Benjen grunted assent. Tyrion perched upon a shattered column drum. "You believe in the old gods only?" "I believe in what answers," Benjen said. "The seven never warm the wall." Tyrion nodded. "Faith can be ice, crystal clear, bitter cold, and deadly when broken." He watched the whetstone rasp along steel. "Jon will need faith, not only in gods or vows, but in himself." Benjen paused. He always held faith in Eddard Stark. If that anchor shifts, anchor or chain? Tyrion mused. Sometimes what steadies us also binds. He folded hands. "Will you tell him of the living dead?" "I already did," Benjen said. He listened. No fear. Only resolve. A faint smile crept. He's more like Ned than the other children. Still waters, deep. Tyrion returned the smile. And perhaps deeper than even Ned guessed. He rose, cloak swirling dust. Sharpen well. Swords may soon serve over prayers. The Septi's cracked window framed the first star of night, dim through drifting cloud. Tyrion thought of old giants' bones slumbering beneath ice, of dragons' bones beneath the Red Keep, of secrets beneath hearts. The ground of Westeros was seeded with the dead. What would bloom when darkness touched those seeds, he could not guess. They reached Harrenhal on the 9th day, skirting the blackened titans of melted towers. Even after 2 centuries, Aegon's dragonfire had left the fortress twisted like burnt tallow. Tyrion felt the horses' unease. Hooves rang hollow echoes inside the ruins' courtyard where only crows held court. They did not linger. Yet as they passed, Tyrion's eye caught sigils freshly daubed across a toppled wall, red comet shapes intertwined with spirals. No house claimed such sign. Benjen stared too. Wild heirs of house went dabble in sorcery tales, he muttered, but Tyrion sensed an older hand. Spirals again, the mark found north of the wall. His skin crawled. That night, campfires flickered in Harrenhal's shadow like timid candles for a corpse. Tyrion sat writing by lamplight. He recorded the spiral graffiti in detail and added a note. Ice leaves footprints, even where fire once ruled. Coincidence? He doubted coincidences. Benjen had left at dusk with 4 men, riding east toward the salt pans to rendezvous with a supply convoy bound for Castle Black. Before parting, he clasped Tyrion's forearm. Tell Ned I ride hard to Outrider's shadow and then to Greywater. If you reach King's Landing before me, guard my brother. Tyrion promised he would. The following dawn, Ned's party resumed the King's Road, smaller now, though still formidable. Tyrion felt the absence of the ranger keenly. Benjen's grim humor had become an unexpected comfort. Ned rode often beside him these days. Perhaps grief made him seek talk. Perhaps the looming capital weighed heavy and a dwarf's wit lightened it. One morning Ned asked, "Do you remember your mother?" Tyrion blinked. The question startled. Faintly, he admitted. "She died birthing me, so the memories are not mine, but stories shaped into distant echoes. My father rarely speaks her name. He blames me for her loss, yet will not say so aloud." Ned's expression softened. "A heavy burden for a child." Tyrion shrugged. "Children bear what they must, until they no longer are children." He flicked reins. "Jon knows this burden well. In that, he and I are kin." Ned absorbed this in silence. They crossed into the Crownlands under a pewter sky that threatened new snow. Farms grew sparser, fields scarred by old raider tracks. Smoke columns marked hamlets clustering for mutual defense. King's Landing drew them like an iron magnet. One felt its presence long before its walls appeared. 2 days out, they encountered a royal courier galloping north, cloak emblazoned with crowned stag. The rider pulled up out of breath and delivered a sealed scroll to Ned. The hand broke the wax, scanned swiftly. His beard stiffened. "Bad news?" Tyrion asked. "News of jousts and feasts," Ned said, tone flat. "The king celebrates Prince Joffrey's name day with a grand tourney. He bids me arrive in time to preside over festivities." Ned folded the parchment. "Gold enough to feed the Night's Watch for a year spent on tilting sticks." Tyrion grimaced. "Robert's appetites outpace sense." Ned glanced sidewise. "Ser Barristan once told me Robert's greatest fear is silence. It reminds him of all he has lost." "Then perhaps noise will drown us all," Tyrion muttered. That evening Tyrion penned a final letter to Varys. The hand approaches with snow-shod footsteps. Arrange a web-lit chamber where secrets may hatch without iron ears. Mention roses, he will understand. He used a different cipher layering riddles of boars and lions. King's Landing appeared at last in late afternoon gloom, a hazy sprawl of walls, and red-tiled roofs sprawled along the Blackwater Rush like a slumbering beast. Smoke smeared the sky. Distant bells tolled. The party halted on a ridge to view it. Tyrion inhaled sour river wind tinged with tanneries and cook fires. The scent of home, though he never called it that. Ned's gaze fixed upon the distant Red Keep rising crimson atop Aegon's hill. "Years have passed since I walked those halls," he said. They felt poisoned even then. Poison seeps deeper with time, Tyrion said. Step carefully. They descended toward the city. Fishermen poling skiffs near the riverbank looked up at the procession of Stark banners and murmured. The King's Gate loomed, iron-banded oak, flanked by guards in plate emblazoned with crowned stag. Trumpets announced Lord Stark. The portcullis rolled up. Tyrion felt the city inhale the newcomers, like a beast scenting fresh meat. Within, narrow streets teemed despite winter's bite. Vendors hawking roasted chestnuts, cut purses weaving, whores beckoning from balconies. The din washed over Tyrion in chaotic waves. Children chased after the column shouting, "Winterfell! Winterfell!" Ned tossed copper stars. Tiny hands scrambled. A herald in Baratheon livery led them through thronged lanes toward the Red Keep's gaping maw. High above, banners snapped. The Black Stag of Robert, the Lion of Casterly Rock, the crimson and gold juxtaposed with the ostensibly subservient stag. Tyrion imagined his sister's smile stretching from one banner to the other like a bridge of silk over a moat of knives. Inside the outer ward they dismounted. Stable boys ran forward. A delegation approached. Sir Boros Blount and Sir Mandon Moore of the King's Guard. Faces impassive behind plate helms. Grand Maester Pycelle, shuffling with beard trailing like wedding lace. And pettier Baelish last, clad in dark green velvet, mocking smile firmly affixed. "Lord Stark," Pycelle wheezed. "Welcome, welcome. The king hunts beyond the Gold Road, but returns anon. The queen prepares chambers in the Tower of the Hand. You must be fatigued." Ned inclined his head. "A long ride, Grand Maester. But the air is pure compared to what awaits here." Baelish laughed. "And yet, my lord, King's Landing's vices are the sweetest wine once swallowed." His sharp eyes slid to Tyrion. Sparkle of mischief. "Lord Tyrion, always a pleasure to see a Lannister return to the fold." Tyrion bowed. "Baelish, may your coin multiply like fleas on a dog." Baelish touched a modest brooch at his throat. Mock humility. "The hospitality of House Baelish is at your service." Pycelle coughed. "The Queen invites you to sup in the small hall this eve." "Ah, private occasion." Ned's jaw tightened. "I will attend." Baelish added, "And the council convenes on the morrow. Matters of tournaments to discuss." "I'm sure." Tyrion smirked. Ned's eyes narrowed further. Within the keep, servants whisked them through vaulted corridors, smelling of beeswax and old rushes. Tyrion felt the walls constrict like an iron lung after open road. He was led to chambers overlooking the Blackwater, smaller than those he normally occupied, but serviceable. A feather bed, desk, and brazier. When the servant departed, Tyrion unpacked. He placed Lyanna's folio into a secret compartment carved beneath the bed's frame, an old Lannister trick, and concealed other documents in a false-bottomed wine cask. Evening fell purple as a fresh bruise. Tyrion dressed in black doublet embroidered with subtle crimson scrollwork. Enough lion to remind, but subdued. He pinned a silver hand brooch shaped like a curled dwarf's finger to his collar, a jest he savored privately. Outside, horns announced twilight curfew. From Flea Bottom rose fragrant smoke of awful stews. He stepped into the corridor and nearly collided with Sandor Clegane, looming, helm tucked under arm. "Imp," the hound growled. "Dog," Tyrion replied pleasantly. Sandor's eyes flicked with contempt, but he moved on. Tyrion continued toward the small hall, where golden light spilled through half-open doors. Within, a long table stood set for a dozen, but only 4 places were occupied. Cersei at the head, hair brilliant as a summer lion's mane. Beside her, Jaime, handsome and relaxed in Kingsguard whites. Opposite him sat Grand Maester Pycelle. An empty chair awaited Ned at Cersei's right, and a smaller chair at Pycelle's side, clearly marked for Tyrion. Cersei's gaze speared Tyrion as he entered. "Little brother," she purred. "I had not expected you to ride with Lord Stark." "Family values," Tyrion said lightly, claiming his seat. "We Lannisters flocked together." Jaime smirked. "Some flock, crows more like." Ned arrived moments later in stark charcoal and wolf's head clasp. He bowed stiffly to Cersei. "Your Grace." "Lord Stark," she replied. "We mourn that his grace the king cannot welcome you. A boar led him merry chase. He is expected within days." Her green eyes lingered on Tyrion's torn cup. "I see the road has left marks." "A rogue thorn," Tyrion said. "Nothing your seamstresses cannot mend." Pycelle clapped, and servants bore in platters spiced lamprey pie, roasted quail with chestnuts, bowls of buttered turnips, flagons of hippocras. The feast shimmered under candlelight, but tasted of pretense. Conversation circled tourneys and weather. Jaime quipped, Cersei smiled daggers. Tyrion contributed jests, Ned offered curt replies. Under the veneer, currents swirled. Cersei's suspicion of Ned, Ned's disdain, and Tyrion's private mission thrumming like a hidden harp string. At one point Cersei said, "I trust the North was hospitable, brother. Did you find much to amuse a man of refinement?" Tyrion sipped wine. "Literary relics, mostly. Old letters penned during the rebellion. Fascinating pieces of history." Jaime's brow arched. "History is written by victors, Tyrion. Best leave it to dust." "Dust is notoriously indiscreet," Tyrion murmured, eyes meeting his sister's. Cersei's smile faltered a breath. "Indeed." After the final course, Ned excused himself. Tyrion lingered, swirling wine. Jaime leaned near. "Ride south with the Starks too long and you risk frostbite of the tongue. Careful." Tyrion smiled at his brother. "And you ride too long with the Queen's secrets. Frostbite is kinder than fire." He set the cup down, bowed and withdrew. In the corridor footsteps caught him. Baelish stepped from behind a tapestry, eyes gleaming fox-bright. "A splendid supper," he murmured, though courses tasted like hidden threats. Tyrion stopped. "I find threats more palatable with honey glaze." Baelish's fingers toyed with his mockingbird pin. "You and I share love of information. Perhaps we might dine privately, compare notes, like two gamblers showing cards." Tyrion asked. "Tempting, but I never wager without knowing the rules." "Ah." Littlefinger smiled. "Then learn them quickly. The game quickens." He slipped away soundless as a shadow. Tyrion returned to his chambers, barred the door, and unrolled Varys' reply delivered earlier by silent page. "The Song of Roses blooms. Meet beneath the dragon's skull 2 nights hence." The message bore no signature, only a tiny spider inked beneath the words. Tyrion burned the parchment to ash. He lay in bed, listening to the city's heartbeat. Distant sea shanties from the harbor, clatter of hooves on cobble, the scold of gulls. Above, the Red Keep groaned, like an ancient beast dreaming of old wars. Tyrion let one hand rest on the board beneath which Lyanna's letters slept. He whispered, "Soon, Jon. Soon. Never her." Far to the north, beneath a bruised swirl of aurora, Jon Snow stood atop the wall, Ghost at his side, and gazed into an expanse where shadows moved too fluidly in moonless dark. He felt the world turning toward storm, though he could not name it. In his pocket lay Tyrion's most recent letter. He touched it, drew strength from ink he could not show any brother. The wind carried faint voices, perhaps rangers calling in the night, perhaps the unsettling song of ice itself. Jon heard within it the beating of 2 hearts. One, a wolf's steady drum, the other, a dragon's distant roar. The sounds merged, as though the wall itself tried to tell him something neither old gods nor new could speak. He closed his eyes and listened. A.K. Night-shrouded kings landing beneath a low, moonless canopy, muting every torch to a sullen amber dot and smudging the labyrinthine streets into sinuous black rivers. The din of the city ebbed to an uneasy hush, broken only by the slap of oars on water in the harbor and the sporadic clamor of quarrelsome drunkards spilling from dockside alehouses. Somewhere above that grime-streaked silence, a single bell tolled the hour, 3 chimes mournful as distant thunder. Tyrion Lannister slipped from the Tower of the Hand wrapped in plain charcoal wool. He had requested no escort and refused even a lantern, trusting instead to the keep's flickering wall sconces and his memory of half-forgotten servants' passages. The air smelled of damp stone, candle smoke, and the faint, almost medicinal reek of whitewash used to scour the walls clean after the last bout of summer plague. At each turn he paused, listening, then padded on, boots barely whispering on rush-strewn floors. It would have amused his father to know the dwarf preferred darkness to torchlit corridors, where spies lurked in every recess like teats on a sow. Too plentiful, too eager, and too accustomed to going unquestioned. Better the black unknown than the glaring gilded known. Beneath the great hall, he descended a stair so steep, it seemed to dig directly through the mountain's marrow. His breath came harsher in the stale air, and sweat prickled despite the chill. At the bottom, a small iron door yielded to a key shaped like a spider's web. The key had arrived an hour after sunset, delivered by a mute page wearing lavender perfume, strong enough to cloy the corridors for a league. The door groaned open. Tyrion ducked through, emerging into a vaulted cavern lit only by the lambent glow of half a dozen fat candles, perched upon bronze stands. Their flames wavered, sending slow waves of luminance across gargantuan shapes, sleeping in rows like obedient hounds. Dragons, dead dragons, their skulls ranked largest to smallest. Balerion loomed in the shadows furthest from the light, maw yawning wide enough to swallow a stable and teeth curving like ivory scimitars. Candlelight touched the black bones so softly, it seemed to breathe. From behind Balerion's left eye socket stepped Varys, saffron robes whispering. His powder-white face glimmered with faint sweat. Perhaps even the spider found awe in the presence of a beast who once fused Harrenhal. Varys offered a shallow bow, practiced, respectful. "My lord hand-to-be," he murmured, voice carrying in the cavern like a silk thread cast through emptiness. "I trust the path was uncomplicated." "Complicated paths lead to complicated questions," Tyrion replied, moving closer till candlelight kissed his graying blonde beard. "Tonight I prefer simple ones, though I fear your answers rarely oblige simplicity." Varys smiled with gentle sorrow. "Information is rarely simple, yet I shall endeavor." He motioned to a squat marble bench placed between two smaller skulls, Merax's and Vagar, if inscription plaques were to be believed. Tyrion seated himself. The marble chilled through wool to bone. "You received my letters?" Tyrion asked. "I had them sung to me by a clever thrush." Varys folded his hands. "A poignant melody of winter roses and hidden eggs. You propose quite the symphony." "Symphony? Yes, but I need instruments," Tyrion said. "Players who know when to hold silence and when to thunder." He reached inside his doublet, withdrew the narrow copy of Maynard's annulment note. In the candle's glow, the ink looked fresh, though the parchment smelled of cedar and old wax. "Will the Archmaesters confirm this if pressed?" Varys accepted the parchment delicately. Archmaester Valar is a cautious man, but vanity tempts him mightily. A highborn dwarf in need of ancient certification might purchase his candor. For the sake of scholarship, naturally. Tyrion exhaled. "Then buy it. Quietly. I need the Citadel's official seal. It will be arranged." Varys tucked the note inside a scroll case. "And the other matter." Tyrion's eyes roamed the skulls. "The boy's identity must remain buried until proof is ironclad and allies ready. If Robert learns too soon, he will demand Jon's head. Cersei might see opportunity in his death too. Remove a rival claim and flay Ned Stark's heart. We must guard Jon long enough for him to matter." He looked up. "Can you shield a bastard ranger on the wall from a king's wrath?" "Ravens can be lost," Varys said, smooth. "Messengers can mislay letters, scribes miscopy names. If the king shouts far enough, I can make echoes answer him until he thinks the sound his own folly." His expression flickered to something nearly fond. "I do not protect many, Lord Tyrion, but the realm needs protectors more than kings. This Jon Snow. Perhaps he is one. Non Sauer. Perhaps," Tyrion echoed. Above them, Merax's sockets glared like ancient judgment. Next. Howland Reed. "Ned Stark's riders should reach Greywater soon. I require Reed in King's Landing before the tourney ends." Tyrion rubbed his thumb across chilled marble. "And unscrutinized by Littlefinger, Pycelle, or any of my sister's spies." Varys inclined his smooth head. "Crannogmen know the art of vanishing. Bringing him south unseen will be challenging but feasible." He tapped fingers together. What of Prince Oberyn? Your letter intrigued him. He travels from Sunspear already, with guards and, how surprising, his daughter Elia Sand. I trust you anticipated that complication. Nan? Simmers. Tyrion grimaced. Anticipated, yes. Welcomed, no. Oberyn's spear can defend, for provoke. Robert may greet him with drunken ire. That concern is mine, Varys assured. I will ensure the prince remains discreet until the proper hour. A hush fell, thick as cobweb. Tyrion listened to his heartbeat echo within those vaulted ribs of stone. One more player, he said, though he doesn't know the game. Sir Jaime. He guarded the Tower of Joy. If his tongue loosens, we gain testimony of Kingsguard oaths to protect the child. But he will not betray my sister easily. I have methods gentler than torture, Varys said. He may talk if he believes silence hurts those he loves. Leave him to me for now, Tyrion answered. I prefer debts owed to my own ledger. A lantern clanked beyond the distant archway. Both men stiffened. Footfalls, slow yet assured, echoed along the old stone. Varys extinguished one candle and beckoned Tyrion behind Balerion's shadow. Across the cavern, Jaime appeared, lantern high. He wore only a nightshirt and breeches, gold hair unbound, eyes gleaming with casual curiosity. He halted before Balerion, studying the massive skull as though seeking reflection in onyx teeth. Brother, Tyrion called softly, stepping out before Varys could stop him. Jaime startled but recovered at once, mouth quirking. Couldn't sleep either, Amp. He lifted the lantern, its light licking sweat on his throat. I visit when the castle stinks of court perfume. Nothing like charred dragon bone to remind a man he's mortal. Tyrion advanced, forcing a smile to mask pounding heart, or remind a dwarf he stands taller than a conqueror once did. Jaime chuckled, eyes sliding to Varys emerging from the black. And spiders too. Varys inclined his head serenely. I keep nocturnal company. Jaime's eyebrow arched. Plotting under dragon skulls. How Lannister of you both. He stepped back a pace. Careful that the bones don't remember fire. It is the living who burn, Tyrion said. We simply choose whether to kindle or quench. Jaime's smile thinned. Philosophy now. I came for quiet. He dipped a mocking half-bow and turned, footsteps fading. Varys whispered once the echo died. A fortunate accident, or dangerous. Both. Tyrion rubbed his temples. He heard nothing but the timing chills. He is your blood. Blood drowns quicker than wine. Tyrion exhaled and motioned toward the archway. Enough. I must rest before I test my wit on council vultures. Varys bowed. Good night, my lord, and thank you. On behalf of realms yet unbroken. Tyrion managed a tired grin. Break them later if you must. Tonight, I prefer them intact. He departed, thoughts swirling like smoke. 2 mornings later, the small council convened in the Tower of the Hand's upper solar. A lofty chamber ringed by arched windows, through which shafts of thin winter sun speared dust motes afloat like golden snow. Ned Stark sat at the Hand's high-backed chair, face carved of northern granite. Below him sprawled scrolls and wax tablets. Renly Baratheon lounged nearby in green velvet bright as new leaves, idly twirling a quill. Pycelle dozed discreetly behind a mound of ledgers. Littlefinger sat opposite, eyes keen, fingers drumming tabletop rhythms nobody else heard. Tyrion occupied a low seat at Ned's side, nominal observer, though everyone knew observers sometimes saw more than participants. His gaze flicked often to the doorway where Grand Master of Coin should appear. Baelish's punctuality was legendary, yet he seemed to delay purposely, savoring the moment like a cat delaying the pounce. Cersei had not come. Court gossip claimed she soothed Joffrey's hangover. From the harbor bells blared news of Robert's triumphant return, boar carcass in tow. The stables brimmed with sweaty destriers, the yard with fresh antler trophies. Ned's jaw tightened whenever horns sounded. The council's first order. Financing the name-day tourney. Renly proclaimed lists of merchants eager to sell silk awnings, exotic meats, and carved benches. A single, gold-cloaked wager booth could fund the Queen's favors alone. he crowed. Ned listened, expression flat. Tyrion scribbled numbers, calculating with silent dismay how each feast drained walls of coin that might otherwise reinforce the real wall. Pycelle cleared his throat in wrinkled protest. Our treasury, my lords, lists near 5 million gold dragons owed to the Iron Bank of Bravos. Another feast. Renly waved a dismissive hand. The realm thrives on spectacle, Maester. Coin returns tenfold when merchants prosper. Ned glanced at Tyrion. Perhaps Lord Tyrion will enlighten us. Does Casterly Rock intend to honor more loans? Tyrion folded his hands together. My father might if he deems the interest favorable, and the endeavor beneficial to the kingdom rather than the king's thirst. He met Renly's amused gaze. Ale is seldom a strategic investment. Littlefinger's lips curved. Leave strategy to soldiers. I assure you, Lord Stark, the treasury can stretch further than you fear, particularly if one pays older debts with fresh promises. Now I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul, Ned said coldly. Or in this case, robbing children yet unborn. Littlefinger shrugged, unconcerned. Tyrion interjected before argument escalated. If I may, perhaps the tourney's purse could be modestly trimmed. 50,000 to the champion will suffice. No need for gilded lances or jeweled harness. Renly opened his mouth, but Tyrion raised a finger. And a portion of gate revenue, say 10%, could be earmarked for the Night's Watch. The Black Brothers face shortages in haunted woods. Let them share the revel's bounty. Pycelle's eyebrows rose. A sound notion. Renly assented with a shrug. Very well. I'll revisit the lists. Ned's nod was minuscule but grateful. The council meandered through disputes between riverlords and Saltpan's pirates. Tyrion contributed little, focusing on Baelish's subtler moves. Casual suggestions that crown offices shift minor captains, or that the Queen's new sworn swords oversee harbor levies. Each crumb seemed trivial, yet Tyrion recognized foundation stones of larger architecture. Reposition a guard captain here, slip a bailiff there, and before long Littlefinger would hold the city's purse and pulse at once. When Pycelle began droning figures on grain stores, Tyrion's mind drifted north. He imagined Jon pacing Castle Black's rookery, parchment in hand, reading Tyrion's cryptic counsel beneath a guttering brazier. Did he feel the wall's slow, ominous heartbeat? Did he worry about Benjen lost in storm-swallowed moors? The thought tightened Tyrion's throat. He pictured ghosts' red eyes gleaming from shadows, and drew comfort in that silent sentinel. Meeting adjourned late afternoon. Council members filtered out. Renly whistled some bawdy march tune. Pycelle shuffled wheezing, and Littlefinger lingered only long enough to murmur to Ned, "Our queen expects you for dinner." Tyrion and Ned departed together in uneasy camaraderie. In the corridor, Tyrion said, "Baelish is adjusting the board. By the time Robert raises his goblet he'll find only pieces Petromox choose to move?" Ned grunted. A lesser threat than incest in the royal line. Tyrion halted. "You still suspect Joffrey's bastardy?" The suspicion had festered since Ned's arrival. Tyrion knew of the book Ned studied, Lineages and Histories of the Great Houses. He also knew Cersei's children bore blonde hair while Robert's ancestors never did. The puzzle had begun gnawing his own thoughts. "I do not suspect," Ned said quietly. "I confirm soon." He tapped his cloak where a small leather notebook bulged. Ser Barristan offered detailed recollections of Robert's bastards in the city. "I ride to see them this eve." "Interesting." "Then ride with more guards than honor," Tyrion warned. "If you expose Cersei, she will strike first, and her claws hold the king's ears." Ned's smile was bleak. "I have no taste for political war. Yet one approaches, like it or not." Tyrion hesitated. "If you fall, Jon's fate worsens. Think of him before you tilt." He left Ned with that stone. Evening draped the city in haze of chimney soot and peppered stars. Tyrion retreated to his chambers to pen letters, one to Benjen. Whispers claimed shadows moving in the neck. "Tread lightly," and one to Maester Aemon of the Night's Watch, referencing dragonglass and requesting any lore of symbols carved in ice. He wrote another to Howland Reed. The wolf who guarded the rose must now howl to save her cub. He sealed each with plain wax, stamped by a simple dagger signet, the cipher he and Varys now shared. A rap on his door startled him. Podrick Payne, green as the summer grass he resembled, peered in. "Sir Bronn seeks audience, my lord." "Send him." Bronn slouched inside. Sword belt loose. Smirk loser. "City's a wasp nest. Thought you'd want a sting taker." He tossed a stained leather pouch onto the desk. Its mouth gaped to show black shards, glassy and sharp. "Obsidian?" Tyrion asked. Bronn nodded. "Smuggler off a Myrish cog owed me coin. Said old miners on Dragonstone pull this from tunnels warm as a smithy's arse. Figured you might fancy." Tyrion plucked a shard. Cold, yet faint warmth pulsed from within. "I do fancy. You have more?" "Half a crate. Price modest, for you." "Nested Sepawanu." Tyrion smiled. "We'll settle later. Keep the shard secret. Tell no one." He handed Bronn 2 silver stags. "And watch Ned Stark's steps. Quiet." Bronn's grin stretched. "Quiet's my favorite trick." He vanished. Tyrion held the obsidian to candlelight, watching reflections bleed crimson across the blade-like edge. "Dragon glass," the old tales said, "could slay white walkers." He doubted but hoped. He wrapped the shards in oiled cloth, stowing them beside Lyanna's folio, then doused the candles and lay down, mind whirring until exhaustion smothered thought. Far north, Jon Snow cut through drifting flakes along Castle Black's silent parapet. Dawn glimmered weak beyond bruised clouds, stripes of gray and faded rose. Beneath the wall, the forest stretched dark and unknowable. Above, the ice-hulled wind into a mournful whistle that seemed to carry voices, barrows, whispers, names lost to snow. Ghost padded ahead, paused silent on frost-slick stone. Jon's breath steamed in long exhalations. He'd slept poorly, plagued by half-remembered dreams of red petals falling upon hard ice. A bell clanged. Assembly at the practice yard. Jon descended, boots slapping wooden steps. Recruits already formed ragged lines beneath the watchful gaze of Sir Alliser Thorne. His contemptuous sneer greeted Jon. "Lord Snow, join your cousins of the coal." Jon took his place, ignoring mutters. Thorne barked commands. Blunted swords clashed. Jon paired with Pip, guiding the smaller boy's stance, correcting grip. Each strike echoed like drum beats up the wall. Sweat soon dampened wool. But Jon's thoughts drifted. To Tyrion's letter hinting at hidden power within him. To Benjen gone. To corpses that moved. When drills ended, Thorne dismissed them for noon meal. Jon led Ghost toward the library tower. The direwolf trotted obediently. Inside, scriptorium candles guttered. Maester Aemon bent over a cracked tome. The old man's blind eyes turned as Jon approached. "Lord Snow?" "I smelled the wolf," he said, voice papery. Jon bowed slightly. "Maester, may I ask about Joe? About obsidian?" Aemon's brows rose. "Valyrian stone. Dragon glass, named by smallfolk." His fingers slid across the tome. "The children of the forest wrought arrowheads of it. The first men feared its bite more than steel." "Bentered each." "Why?" Jon asked, heart thumping. "Legends say it slays others," Aemon whispered. "Fire turned to stone, the antithesis of their coal." He closed the book. "I've never seen proof, but I keep a few shards, gifted by the Starks generations ago." He gestured to a coffer. Jon opened it, black knives dull in lamplight, edges sharp as truth. He lifted one, felt its chill. "May test them." "Take 2, Aemon said. "Give them to the first ranger when he returns. He once scoffed at my tales. Events may have changed his mind." "Then?" Jon secured the shards inside his belt pouch, thanked Aemon, and left. Outside, snow thickened. He gazed once at the horizon where the haunted forest lurked, then descended to the yard to find Samwell, eager to share newfound hope, disguised as stone. Mid-afternoon in King's Landing saw Tyrion closeted with Septim Ordain's ledgers concerning orphan boys maintained by the faith. He hunted descriptions of children bearing the king's dark hair and blue eyes stationed in Flea Bottom. Evidence, Ned might wheel. Tyrion's gaze blurred. Lines of ink turned to worms. He rubbed eyes, quills suspended, when Pettier Baelish strolled in unannounced. "Researching charities?" Littlefinger asked, closing the door with gentle click. Tyrion set quill down. "Researching bastards." Baelish's mouth curved. "Dangerous line of study in this court." "I walk dangerous lines with eyes open?" Tyrion said. "Why visit me, Pettier?" "To offer a gift," Littlefinger said. From his sleeve he produced a small scroll. "A raven arrived, delivered by my own birds, of course." The seal was plain, but the handwriting... He placed the scroll on the desk. Tyrion frowned, recognizing the cipher lines of his letter to Howland Reed. "Intercepting messages now?" "I intercept everything," Littlefinger murmured. "This one, however, I've not yet deciphered." "Thought you might explain." Tyrion measured him. "And if I decline? Then I wonder aloud at tomorrow's council why a Lannister plots with a dead man's bannerman." Littlefinger's eyes glinted. "We are both players. Share the board and we both win." Tyrion inhaled slowly. "Suppose I tell you. The letter invites an ally to the city to speak truths older than Robert's crown. Will you protect that ally?" "I protect profit," Baelish said. "Truth rarely pays, but secrets do. Give me a slice of this particular pie." "Your slice might choke you," Tyrion warned. "I like thick crust," Baelish replied. "Smile thin. Consider. I leave the scroll as token." He turned, vanished with ghostly grace. Tyrion exhaled through teeth. The game accelerated. He tucked the letter into his doublet and beckoned Podrick to fetch Bronn. A sellsword's knife might soon prove gentler than a master of coins' smile. That night, a scream shattered the keep's uneasy calm. Tyrion jerked awake to pounding on his chamber door. Bronn burst in, sword half drawn. "Assassin in Lord Stark's tower." Tyrion flung on cloak and followed, heart hammering. Corridors seethed with guards, torches cast frenzied shadows. At the tower's upper level, Ned's door stood ajar. Jory Castle's body sprawled across threshold, throat a mess of arterial red. Several gold cloaks pressed inside, one emerged retching. Cersei appeared in slippers and silk robe. Jaime behind her, hair wild. "What happened?" she demanded. Captain of the guard stammered. "A blade in the night, your grace. Lord Stark survives, barely. Maester Pycelle tends him." Tyrion's stomach plunged. He pushed forward, slipping on blood. Inside, Ned lay on the floor, nightshirt soaked crimson at the shoulder and ribs. Pycelle knelt, pressing linen. Ned's face pale as a fish belly, eyes half-lidded with pain. Beside him crouched Arya Stark, cheeks streaked with tears, small practiced sword in grip, slick with her father's blood. Tyrion knelt, voice soft. "Arya, release the blade." She stared blankly. "He murdered Jory." "Then father," he tried. Her voice cracked. She dropped the sword, it clanged. Pycelle barked at a page to fetch more gauze. Jaime hauled the dead assassin's body into the lantern light. Slim, leather-clad, face unfamiliar. On his wrist a tattoo of a dagger inside a mockingbird. Littlefinger's sigil. Stylized. Tyrion's blood iced. Jaime's brow furrowed. "Pettier." "Hells." Cersei's gaze slashed to Tyrion. "Explain this." "I would, sister, had I arranged it." Tyrion's mind raced. Baelish. So blatant? Or a frame? Lord Stark must live. "Help Maester Pycelle." Jaime moved to lift Ned onto the bed. Arya refused to leave, gripping her father's hand. Blood soaked the mattress as Pycelle stitched, mumbling poppy and prayers. Cersei pivoted, rage uncoiling. "Find Baelish," she snapped to guards. "Bring him to me, living." Tyrion, still kneeling, watched Ned's labored breaths. He whispered, "Hold, wolf. The realm needs you yet." Pycelle applied poultice. Blade glanced rib. "He may live if fever spares him." Arya's tears whispered onto linens. At dawn, the assassin's body lay on a cart bound for the dungeons. Baelish was nowhere found. His manse stood vacant, servants gone. A single mockingbird feather remained on his pillow. Robert returned midday to cacophony. Banners wilted, horns half-hearted. He stormed to the tower. Half-drunk, grief and fury sparking. At Ned's bedside he bellowed for heads. Tyrion intervened, soothing with honey words until the king's rage turned to tears. Robert clutched Ned's hand, muttered regrets that battles never truly ended. When the king finally left, Tyrion found Sansa outside the door, white-faced. "My father?" she whispered. "He fights still," Tyrion said. "Pray, and be near him." Sansa nodded mutely. Arya emerged, tight-jawed. The sisters locked eyes in fragile truce. Tyrion descended stair to the courtyard, mind aflame. Littlefinger must be hunted, but by whom? Cersei's hounds would kill him quiet. Tyrion needed Baelish alive to learn whose game he played. He dispatched Bronn and 2 sellswords to watch the river gates. Varys promised spiders in every street, but admitted even spiders could lose a mockingbird mid-flight. That evening, Tyrion met Jaime on a rampart, overlooking sunset bleeding into the Blackwater. Purple and scarlet streaked the sky like a wound. Jaime leaned on stone, expression taut. "I do not like someone using my sigil to harm Starks," he said. "Nor do I," Tyrion answered. "A trap. Either Baelish's boldest folly or our sister's boldest." Tyrion studied Jaime. Would Cersei risk the hand's life? Jaime's eyes narrowed. She guards her children at any cost. But she knows murder of Ned Stark destroys peace with the North. Nemder, which could distract Robert from questions of bastardy. Tyrion let that linger. If Ned dies before he tells the king his heresy. Jaime swallowed, gaze drifting to the river. "I need wine." "So do I," Tyrion sighed. But he did not drink. Instead he walked to the rookery and sent ravens. One to Castle Black, Ned wounded foes unseen, caution. Another to Howland, mockingbird's bite, change road. He wrote Oberyn, delay entry. Daggers unsheathed, in Rose's name. Days blended. Ned's fever rose, broke, rose again. Pycelle applied leeches. Renly imported a Taroshi healer who drenched wounds in green salve smelling of mint and wormwood. Arya seldom left bedside. Sansa read prayers aloud. Tyrion brought news in measured doses. Varys whispered that Baelish's trail ended at a Lyseni whorehouse on the Street of Silk, then vanished in a black ship, sailing toward Gulltown. Robert prowled halls, snapping at courtiers, hunting only in words now. Every boar in the Kingswood spared his wrath. Had tasted enough blood. Cersei remained cool, though Tyrion sensed coiled terror behind emerald eyes. Amid this, invitations to jousts persisted. Knights arrived from every corner. Loras Tyrell with armor polished mirror bright, Thoros of Myr swinging flaming sword, Sandor's brother the Mountain glowering behind his visor. Court buzzed with wagers. Tyrion placed modest coins on the Knight of Flowers, speed over brutish force. On the 5th night, Ned stirred to full wakefulness. Tyrion visited at once. Ned's voice rasped. "Jon." "He lives," Tyrion assured. "Safe on the wall." Ned's hand gripped his wrist. "You must guard him. Promise." "I swear." Tyrion swallowed. "But you must heal. Cersei will move." Robert wavers like a drunk in a storm. "Been done." "Cersei knows," Ned whispered. "I told her." "Fool." His eyes glimmered with pain and resolve. "She will not flee. Her pride rules her." Sweat beaded his brow. Robert must hear truth. "He will kill her," Tyrion said. "Better that than the realm dies." Ned sagged, strength spent. Tyrion left him sleeping. Thoughts heavy. He feared Robert's rage incited civil war. He feared silence incited something worse. The game's stakes soared beyond thrones now. If others stirred, disunity would doom all. Outside the tower, Varys awaited in dove gray. "The Prince of Dorne arrived under cover of dusk," he murmured. "He seeks audience with you." Tyrion nodded. "Bring him to the old armory within the hour." "Alone." Varys bowed and flowed away. Tyrion walked to the armory, heart drumming. Inside, dusty racks held rust-flecked helms, ringmail decayed. Moonlight slashed through narrow crenels. Tyrion paced until the door creaked. Oberyn Martell entered, clad in road-stained leather, dusk-red cloak. His eyes, black suns, burned above a trimmed beard. He closed the door. "Tyrion Lannister," he said, voice soft with menace. "My sister lay broken by your family's hand. You summoned me with riddles of roses. Speak quick before I redraw old reckonings." Tyrion raised palms. "I summon you for vengeance." He produced a parchment. Lyanna's final letter, the copy. Oberyn scanned, features tightening. "A child," he whispered. "Rhaegar's blood lives?" "Yes," Tyrion said. "Hidden by Ned Stark to save from Robert's fury. That child now stands sentinel on the wall." Oberyn's smile emerged, dangerous and hopeful. "A dragon north." He paced. "You risk much bringing this." "Why?" "No one." "Because winter wakes monsters older than our feuds. The realm needs a banner no lion or stag alone can bear." Tyrion drew a breath. "Help me shield Jon Snow until proof compels even Robert to bend. Then you may have justice for Elia, in life, not death." Oberyn's gaze pierced. "If Cersei moves to silence this secret, we strike first." Tyrion's voice barely trembled, but wisely. The Dornish prince laughed low, like a blade sliding from a scabbard. "I have waited years to wield wisdom and steel together." He extended a scarred hand. "Alliance, then." Tyrion clasped it. "Alliance." On the wall's brink, Benjen Stark led 4 rangers back through the north gate. Storms had hounded them 2 weeks. Snow-iced beards, lashes. They carried no wildling heads, only silence and unease. Benjen's first act: to climb to the Lord Commander's solar where Mormont poured hot mulled ale. Benjen lowered hood, eyes grave. "Another spiral," he said. Mormont stiffened. "Where?" "2 days east along the Milkwater. Carved in glacier, 6 arms round a central void. No tracks but ice cracked nearby like thunder." My men felt watched. Mormont muttered a curse. "I'll write to the king again." Benjen shook head. "Write to Lord Eddard." "The king drinks." He swallowed. "I must speak to my nephew Jon as well." In King's Landing, the first day of the tourney dawned bright, banners flapping wild color against turquoise sky. Trumpets blared across the field of the cloth of gold. A great plain outside the Lion Gate, transformed by silk pavilions and grandstands. The city seethed with wine and coin. Tyrion rode with Oberyn, disguised as a Dornish merchant retainer, slipping into a private box very secured. From there he watched knights tilt. Loras unhorsed Sandor's brother to roars. Gold cloaks patrolled in doubled numbers. At midday, rumor rustled. Renly placed a staggering wager on Loras. Cersei whispered to the Mountain of Slighted Honor. Tension charged the air like summer lightning. Tyrion's eyes seldom left the queen, resplendent atop the dais. Her gaze slid to him once, expression unreadable. Between bouts, Varys arrived bearing a sealed decree. "Robert hunts again tomorrow," he murmured. "Alone but for a squire." Tyrion frowned. "The king's hunts end poorly." "Perhaps," Varys said, "if the wine flows too freely." "Cersei?" Tyrion whispered. Varys inclined his head a fraction. "Accidents serve those who cannot afford open war." Tyrion's stomach lurched. If Robert died, Joffrey ascended. Cersei, regent. Ned, wounded, might not contest. Jon's claim unproven. The realm would fracture. He gripped Oberyn's arm. "We must guard the king's throat from his own cup." Oberyn flashed white teeth. "A Dornishman can watch a wine jug as well as any taster." That night, Robert's feast thundered in the throne room. Booming laughter, flood of Baratheon appetites. Tyrion, Oberyn, and Varys threaded through throng. When roasts emerged, servers poured flagons of blackberry wine. Cersei kept near Robert, smiling wide. Tyrion noted her cup remained untouched. His heart hammered. He signaled to a baron, who drifted to the wine barrels. Seconds later, Robert slammed back his goblet, wiped foam from beard, and demanded more. A squire refilled. Tyrion edged beside the king. Your Grace, Dornish vintage, spiced with flame pepper. Bracing, Robert laughed, a rolling bear's growl. Tyrion thrust a fresh goblet, poured from Oberyn's untainted cask. Robert grabbed it, drained half. Cersei's gaze flicked sharp as a dagger. Tyrion bowed, stepped away. Varys breathed near his ear. Well played. But the Queen's fury brewed. She whispered to Sir Mandon. The Kingsguard glided towards Tyrion. Oberyn stepped forward, hand on hilt, but Tyrion lifted a tiny scroll sealed with his ring, handed it to Sir Mandon. For her grace, a gift. Cersei broke seal. Inside a single sentence. The truth of winter roses would chill even your lion's heart. Poke further and they may prick. Her expression jolted from rage to wary calculation. She folded the note, nodded dismissal. Sir Mandon retreated. Tyrion exhaled. Dawn spilled red gold across the river when Ned Stark summoned Tyrion. The hand, pale but standing, leaned on a cane. I ride to Robert's hunt, he declared, voice strained. We speak today. Ride. Tyrion stared. You're half-healed. He trusts me most when killing boars. Tyrion's thoughts raced. Robert's hunt, Cersei's scheme, Ned's truth. Explosive mix. Let me accompany. Your presence fuels suspicion, Ned said. Guard the city. Keep Sansa and Arya safe. And the letter for Robert. Deliver if I fall. He pressed a wax-sealed parchment into Tyrion's palm. Promise. Tyrion met his eyes. Promise. Later, standing on a balcony, Tyrion watched Ned's party ride out. Robert, in gilded gorget, horn and spear. Ned pale but resolute. Lancel Lannister young and anxious, no queen. Dust plumed behind them like ghosts. Tyrion whispered, 7 keep you. He turned into the tower, letter cold in pocket. Oberyn waited, arms crossed. Shall we see if kings may die? The prince asked. Tyrion shook his head. Kings may, but kingdoms cannot. 3 nights passed. Ravens flapped above the red keep, bearing black news. The king wounded by boar. Lancel's account. Wine heavy, spear slow. Robert lay near death in a pavilion miles from the city. Panic rippled through court. Servants whispered of omen. Lords counted blades. Cersei gathered the council in the throne room at dusk. Golden light falling on iron blades of the throne like dried blood. Tyrion stood behind Varys. Letter from Ned tucked inside sleeve. Cersei's voice rang. We ride at sunrise to the king. Until then, I speak with his voice. Her eyes dared any to contradict. Renly objected. The hand speaks with his voice in the king's absence. Lord Stark deserted his post. Cersei lied smoothly. He hunts while duties drown. She raised a parchment. The king signed his will, naming Joffrey heir and me regent. Tyrion's pulse stuttered. Ned's letter weighed heavily. He must choose. Reveal Cersei's children's parentage now, without proof, or wait to produce Jon's claim. Either path could set fire. He stepped forward, bowing slightly. Your Grace, might we confirm the will's seal? Forged documents spread like fleas. Her gaze iced. You doubt me? I doubt every quill until the king's hand warms it before my eyes. He forced a laugh. Cersei advanced down the dais. You wound me, brother. Tyrion swallowed. I prefer you breathing, dear sister, but truth breathing more. He pivoted, leaving hall before her retort struck. Guards parted, whispers blossomed. In his chambers he paced, cursing. Ned rode home 1 step from death. Jon guarded ice, Robert bled. Baelish vanished. Cersei moved pieces on fire. Tyrion drew Lyanna's folio, set it beside Ned's letter. He laid obsidian shards next, their edges glinting. A knock. Varys slipped in. The king worsens. Leeches fail. Time shortens. Tyrion met his dark eyes. Then we move tonight. Which blade? Varys asked. Truth of bastardy or of winter? Both, Tyrion said. Gather the loyal. Sir Barristan, Oberyn, Renly, if his honor outweighs ambition. Bring the gold cloaks, Captain Janos Slint, quietly. We read Ned's letter before the king and queen together. And I want Howland Reed inside the city by dawn. Varys inclined his bald head. The song becomes symphony. Then let's pray it ends not in dirge, Tyrion muttered. While Varys' messengers sprinted through moonlit alleys, Tyrion wrote again to Jon. Storms break tonight. The wall may feel tremor. Stand ready. He sealed it with wax and paw in flame. He hoped the raven would fly faster than fate. Castle Black's rookery shuddered with beating wings, as dawn's red glared across the horizon like a fresh wound. Jon opened the lattice, took the blackbird scroll, heart hammering. Tyrion's cipher unraveled in his mind. Storms, tremor, dart. He stuffed the scroll inside cloak and hurried to the mess hall. Inside, rangers hunched over trenchers. Benjen, newly returned, sipped broth. Jon slid beside him, whispered words that stiffened his uncle's spine. The king dying, Benjen muttered. If Joffrey takes throne, Lannisters rule. Then we hold fast, Jon said. His hand brushed the obsidian shard at belt. Benjen's eyes rested on it, curious, then resolved. We hold. In distance, horns sounded 3 blasts, unheard in 100 years. Rangers froze, spoons suspended, Jon's blood iced. 3 blasts, white walkers. Benjen bolted upright. To the wall. Jon followed, hard a hammer. They ascended the icy stairs 2 at a time. Wind screamed at them, flinging snow like knives. On the far northern horizon, a jagged line of moving shadows advanced, moonlight gleaming off frost-clad forms. Wolves howled beneath, their cries raw with ancient dread. Benjen drew sword. Light the fire trench, he barked. Jon ran, sparking flint against oil-soaked rope. Flames roared aloft, a blazing braid along the wall's edge. On the forest floor, pale shapes paused, then continued, unafraid. Jon's fingers tightened around the obsidian dagger. Tyrion's final words echoed. A time will come when stories and sword both are needed. He lifted eyes to the star-strewn sky, to dragons that once ruled, to wolves that still roamed, and felt inside him a pulse of heat meeting ice, like 2 halves of a greater forge. In King's Landing, Tyrion marched toward Maegor's Holdfast, flanked by Ser Barristan Selmy and Oberyn Martell. Renly trailed reluctant. Janos slint-eyed gold. Cersei awaited, crown glimmering under torchlight. Joffrey at her side. Robert lay pale on the bed behind, wheezing. Ned Stark leaned heavily on Kay near the headboard, Maester Pycelle fussing. Tyrion stepped before them, voice steady. Your Grace, we bear matters of blood and crown. He brandished Ned's letter. Lord Stark names your children false issue. Cersei's face hardened. Lies from a traitor. Ned straightened. Truth, your Grace. Jon Arryn died for it. Tyrion raised Lyanna's letters. Yet deeper truth beats beneath. Not only your children's claim, but the king's hunting a nephew true-born of dragon and wolf. Let us read. Pycelle sputtered. Joffrey blanched. Ser Barristan's sword hissed half out. Robert's eyes fluttered, pain dulled. Tyrion read aloud. Lyanna's final plea, her son, the promise. Silence crashed like surf. Cersei laughed brittle. A bedtime tale. No proof. She tore at a sleeve, produced Robert's while signing Joffrey heir. This is proof. Tyrion slammed Maynard's annulment on the table. A marriage honored by faith. Joffrey shouted, voice cracking. Seize him. Gold Cloaks hesitated, eyes flicking to Slint, who looked to Tyrion's heavy purse earlier promised. Slint barked, hold. Confusion reigned. Renly stepped forward. If Robert acknowledged this child, Joffrey's claim falters. Cersei's scream sliced air. She lunged for Tyrion, nails raised. Oberyn caught her wrist. Jaime, standing aside, moved, yet not to protect Cersei but to restrain her gently, pain etched on his face. "A chaos," Robert groaned, lifted shaky hand. "Enough," he rasped. Every head turned. His gaze fell on Cersei, then drifted to Ned. "What damnable secrets?" He coughed blood. Tyrion knelt bedside. "Your Grace, your queen's children are not of your seed." "But your sister's bastard," Cersei hissed. Tyrion pressed on. Lives at the wall. A Targaryen Stark prince. You must decide now, if realm lives or bleeds. Robert's chest rattled. He stared at Cersei. Recognition flickered. Pain. Betrayal. ... His fingers grasped Ned's sleeve. You tell me this after? Forgive me, Ned whispered. But truth. Robert sagged, eyes closing. Pycelle felt his pulse, shook head. The king is gone. Silence. Then Cersei's shriek. She reached for Joffrey. Bow all of you to your king. Joffrey's eyes, wide with terror, met Tyrion's. Behind him, Janos Slynt's gold cloaks shifted uncertainly. Ser Barristan looked to Robert's corpse, then to Jaime, torn. Tyrion inhaled. By the king's last command, this issue stands unresolved. The council will meet to review evidence. He brandished Lyanna's letters, Maynard's seal. Until such hearing, no one sits the throne. Cersei advanced, voice venom. Who denies my son? You, dwarf. I deny no one, Tyrion said. I present possibility. Let witness decide. The throne room doors banged open. Varys entered, face pale. My lords, dire raven from the north. The wall sounds 3 blasts. The others march. His words fell like a funeral bell. Even Cersei faltered, confusion flickering to fear. Tyrion's heart thudded triumph and dread. He turned, raising the black parchment high. Then our petty crowns matter less than living till dawn, he declared. His voice rang off stone. The prince in the north, heir of ice and fire, stands where the darkness first strikes. We must choose now, to fight each other or to join him. In the stunned hush, ghosts of old kings seemed to lean from tapestries, waiting judgment. Snow might have drifted through shattered windows. Dragon skulls might have groaned beneath. Tyrion felt history yawning wide and stepped into its mouth with head high. Summon your armies, he said. Summon truth. Winter is not coming. Winter is here. Nanmuter. He looked to Jaime, brother, killer, protector. Then to Oberyn's burning eyes, to Renly's uncertain resolve, to Cersei's frozen fury, and finally to Ned Stark, who stood shoulders squared despite agony. Something like understanding kindled between them, fragile as first light after endless night. Outside, bells began to toll again, not for tournament, but for death of a king and birth of a war beyond thrones. Their clangs rolled across rooftops, over muddy streets, across the Blackwater's dark skin, and far beyond, perhaps as far as Castle Black, where Jon Snow watched pale shapes crawl through shadow, obsidian dagger in hand, heart pounding with secret fire waiting to ignite the cold world anew. Okay. Wind knifed across the summit of the wall with such ferocity that it shaved breath from the lungs and left every exhalation a ragged plume of frost. Yet Jon Snow remained where he stood, cloak snapping like a wounded banner, obsidian dagger gripped so tightly his knuckles shone bone white. Beneath his boots, the ice quivered in tremors faint but unceasing, as though some colossal heartbeat pulsed deep in the ancient ramparts. A crimson smear of sunrise bled over the horizon, brushing the endless snowscape in mournful hues of violet and rust. But within that frail dawn moved legion silhouettes, pale as bleached wood, silent as snowfall, eyes burning thin and blue embers that neither flickered nor dimmed. They drifted forward in phalanxes 10 deep, gliding over drifts with the serenity of wraiths and the resolve of glaciers. Benjen Stark planted his feet beside Jon, black cloak, twisting, garnet-rimmed frost stiffening the tips of his beard. They've not dared the wall in 8 millennia, he murmured, voice brittle as icicles. The old spells must have weakened, or they test for cracks. Jon's reply was a whisper lost to the wind. Then we give them no breach. He raised his gloved fist. On the walkway to either side, rangers and stewards scurried, lighting the last of the pitch cauldrons, fletching fire arrows, stacking spears tipped in dragon glass newly mustered from forgotten caches. Samwell Tarly fussed with tinder near a brazier, thumbs numb and clumsy, yet his face held grim resolve. Gren and Pip hauled buckets of oil, skin shining with sweat despite the cold. Above them, the wall's watch bells told one long, sonorous note, the first of three that would echo across every fort from Eastwatch to Westwatch, summoning brothers who thought such alarm consigned to cracked legend. A horn blast, low, mournful, rolled out from the central tower. Jon inhaled, tasting fear on the air. Metallic, like bitten coin. Between one heartbeat and the next, a white shadow bounded past. Ghost hurtled along the parapet, teeth bared, crimson eyes locked on the oncoming horde. His growl vibrated through Jon's ribs. "Archers!" Benjen shouted. 1,000 bowstrings creaked. Arrows kissed with oily rags ignited. Orange tongues blossomed in the half-light as men drew and loosed. Comets of fire arced down, hissing through the frigid wind, and rained upon the first rank of the dead. Some white walkers shattered like brittle glass, where dragonglass arrowheads pierced. Others staggered but did not fall, rising again to continue the inexorable march. From the rear lines emerged pale mockeries of men in black mail, so ancient it smoldered with hoarfrost. Their swords were crystal blades that drank the sunrise and spat it back in shards. They raised them in one sweeping gesture, and a howl rose from the living dead around them. Wordless, terrifying, a sound that scraped marrow. The outer fire trench roared when Pip hurled a torch, a serpentine tongue of flame racing along the base of the wall. For a breath it felt as if dawn itself had dropped to earth. Heat washed upward, and the vanguard of whites recoiled as fire devoured them. Bones cracked, sinews shriveled, shadows danced macabre in the flicker. Jon swallowed, pulse hammering in his temples. So far. But the true enemy advanced behind its disposable slaves. A White Walker captain, taller than Hodor, stepped to the fore. Frost feathered his helm in jagged spires. His spear was polished ice, its tip swirling mist. He regarded the fire trench, tilted his head as though considering, and tapped the ice with the butt of his weapon. Cracks spider-webbed outward, meeting the flames with a hiss so violent it sounded like rivers of snakes. Steam exploded in billowing towers, and the trench's brilliance dimmed as water gushed to douse the oil. The wall of fire sputtered, collapsed into angry pools. With eerie fluidity, the dead surged forward again, ignoring the scalding mud. Benjen slammed a gauntleted fist onto the ice merlin. Signal the scorpions. Wooden cranes, hurriedly repaired remnants of ancient defense, swivel. Gigantic bolts tipped in jagged black glass, launched with reverberations that shook teeth. The first caught the White Walker captain in the torso. He burst like crystal under hammer. Shards clattered across the trampled snow and the dead behind him faltered. A second bolt skewered two whites in a grotesque parody of a lover's embrace. Jon gouged distances, 50 yards to the base, the first climbers already latching skeletal hands onto footholds carved by centuries of melt. He turned to Ed Tollett, who read command in his eyes. "Rocks," Ed bellowed. And rocks rained. Limestone debris long mined from the quarries for repairs, shoveled over the edge by sweating stewards. The stones hammered the corpses below, snapping spines, cracking skulls, yet still they came. At Jon's hip the obsidian dagger whispered an unspoken promise. He looked down the icy stair that carved a corkscrew into the wall's depth. "Hold this line," he barked to Benjen. "If they breach, light the inner reserves." Benjen caught his arm. "Where are you going?" "To make sure they don't breach." He plunged down the stair, Ghost racing ahead, claws sparking. Air burned in his lungs as he descended level after level, until the courtyard loomed. Gendry. Sent to the wall months earlier as part of new recruits. Hammered rivets into a makeshift dragonglass spear tip. "Bastards take me," he muttered when he saw Jon. "They're climbing already." "Their captains control them," Jon gasped. "We kill the captains." He grabbed a newly finished spear, hefted it, felt its balance. "How many finished?" 24, Gendry said. "Enough?" "Enough to try." Jon turned to a cluster of uneasy brothers. "With me." They sprinted for the nearest postern, opening to the outer switchback path carved at the wall's foot. Snow blasted into their faces. The roar of battle above thundered through every stone. Jon took point, leading the charge along the walkway that hugged the glacial wall. Whites clambered only yards away, nails scratching grooves in ancient ice. He thrust his spear through the neck of one reaching over the parapet. It burst into shards and tumbled backward, dragging others into a writhing heap. Samwell wheezed behind, clutching a heavy satchel. "Dragonglass daggers," he panted. "Maester Aemon's last." "Guard them," Jon called. An otherworldly shriek cut the air. Just ahead, a White Walker lieutenant crawled out of the press, vaulting onto the path. Its movements were impossibly fluid, every limb carving arcs in air, as elegant as a dancer's. It locked sapphire eyes on Jon Dow. The cold that poured off its armor stung like hornet fire. Jon raised his spear. The walker lunged. Jon parried, felt the shudder of ice against dragonglass. Sparks of frost sprayed. He slid left, let his cloak billow, then stabbed low. The spearhead cracked through the walker's shin. Black ice exploded up his shaft, numbing his fingers. The creature howled, an eldritch note that rattled snow loose from cliffs. It slashed with its crystal blade, opened Jon's shoulder in a thin red gash. Pain flared, but anger burned hotter. Jon reversed his grip, jammed the spear point upward into the hollow of its throat. The walker shattered in a blizzard of freezing shards. Every white within 20 paces stiffened, head cocked as though hearing a distant call, then collapsed, limbs spasming. Sam stared, lips trembling. "7. Save us." "Don't wait on gods," Jon answered, binding his shoulder with torn cloak. "Find the next captain." Thus they fought, yard by yard along the switchback. Each walker slain sent a local tremor of collapse through the dead beneath its sway. Brothers cheered hoarsely, throats raw from cold. Ghosts darted ahead, hamstringing whites with savage ferocity. Jon lost count of kills, lost count of wounds, until the last spear shattered and only his dagger remained. Blood painted ghostly runes across his knuckles as he clambered onto a spur of ice overlooking the field. The sun now fully crowned the horizon, a wan disk blurred behind gauzy clouds. Below, they had stemmed the initial tide. Hundreds of corpses lay in ruinous piles. But further off, deeper in the forest shadows, massed shapes still gathered. The engine's horn blast signaled retreat to the inner gate, their fuel nearly gone. Jon limped back with survivors. As the gate groaned shut, Sam pressed a hot poultice of pine resin to Jon's shoulder. Jon winced, eyes never leaving the narrow murder slit. The dead formed ranks again, and somewhere among them new White Walker captains stepped forward, more imposing than before, their frost-plated armor etched with spirals that mirrored the glyphs burned into Jon's nightmares. Benjen loomed. "We bought ours, maybe a night, no more." Jon wiped sweat frozen to his brow. "Ravens. Flown. Every rookery from here to Winterfell. The question is, who answers first?" Who answered first was not the North. It was a small council in disarray, thousands of leagues south, where torchlight limned iron blades. The king's body lay in a stone-cold sept, candles guttering. Joffrey sulked upon the Iron Throne but wore no crown pending coronation. Cersei crowd-handled courtiers with brittle grace, while tyrannizing pages with cornered lioness rage. Yet whispers of the wall's distress passed through taverns, sewers, and finally, the ears of men who understood that some wars eclipse dynastic feuds. In Ned Stark's convalescent chamber, Tyrion unfurled the Raven Scroll. 3 blasts. Numbers beyond count that eye. Send fire, send steel, send Southron lords unafraid of the cold. Ned propped himself upright on carved pillows, stiff with wolf outlines. Pain haunted his eyes, but determination blazed brighter. "They cannot stand alone," he rasped. "Nor will they," Tyrion replied. He spread a white cloth across a trestle and placed small pewter sigils upon it. Lion, wolf, sun, stag, fleur-de-lis, kraken, flayed man. We forge something new or we die fractured. Renly Baratheon stood near the hearth, expression tightened by sudden gravity. "My brother's corpse lies still warm. And now you speak of alliances with houses sworn to his murderer. No one murdered Robert but Robert's appetites, Tyrion snapped. Save your indignation until the undead pound your barricade. Oberyn Martell lounged in a window alcove, but the lazy serpent mask had slipped, revealing eyes keen as a falcon's. Dorne will fight with flame and spear to keep winter from our orchard groves. But see that my sister's memory is not bartered away to buy some Lannister advantage. Ned's hand trembled upon blanket. Prince Oberyn, my sister Lyanna died long before yours. We share blood grief. Oberyn inclined his head. I will remember that. Sir Davos Seaworth entered, cloak still caked with road dust. He bowed to Ned, then Tyrion. Lord Stannis sends word. He sails from Dragonstone within the week with grain, knights, and a hold full of black iron. He begs coordination. Renly stiffened. Stannis begs? Demands, then? Davos sighed. My lord seldom begs anything. Tyrion turned to Ned. Stannis is stern, but he hates shadows and lies. He will not hinder Jon's claim if he sees advantage in uniting the realm. Nen. Ned's lips tightened at the mention of Jon. Tyrion knew the wound there, guilt for secrets and distance. Ned said, we honor Robert by defending his realm. He gripped the edge of the cloth map. Summon each house sworn to the North and Riverlands at once. We march for Winterfell to gather, then the Wall. Renly spread hands. March through a kingdom teetering on revolt. Lannister and Baratheon banners at each other's throats, and Bolton flaying in the Dreadfort? We will feed the others' knights in chainmail, by the thousand, while squabbling who leads. Nah! Tyrion tapped the lion figure in, then slid it beside the wolf. My father commands the greatest host south of the Trident. I will convince him. Oberyn barked a laugh. Lord Tywin marry his sword to the Starks. You gamble boldly, imp. I gamble on survival, Tyrion shot back. My father wagers where profits lie, and I will show him larger profit in life than death. Renly shook his head. You assume Tywin's signature can ink an alliance before Cersei wheels her son into full kingship. She will never allow it. No man and Tyrion's smile was small and savage. We will remove the choice from her hand. Ned's gaze sharpened. How? By taking Joffrey north. Silence gulped the room. Renly sputtered. Abduct the king? Madness. The boy loves playing knight. Tell him he shall defend the realm verily, sword in hand, atop the wall like Aegon, the conqueror. Tyrion said, voice silk-soft but edged. Hay will preen. And Cersei, she must follow or risk the realm, seeing her hide behind chambers of silk, while her son wins acclaim. Ned smiled despite pain. A lion in winter garb. I might pay good coin to watch that. Then Terrell. Oberyn drummed fingers on sill. And Sansa? Arya? They ride too, Ned said. Stark blood returns to its roots. Tyrion exhaled a breath he did not know he held. Then we begin. Evening cloaked the Red Keep in purple gloom. By the time Tyrion and Jaime crossed the serpentine path leading to the Tower of the White Sword, golden armor gleamed in torch flickers along Jaime's shoulders, but beneath the bravado lay taut muscle and eyes that flicked like cornered cats. Kidnapping our nephew? Jaime muttered, descending a spiral stair. You'll pardon me if I find the plan wanting. It's not kidnapping if he agrees, Tyrion countered. Cersei will call it treason. She calls everything treason. Tyrion halted before a narrow arch, laid a hand on Jaime's arm. Brother, swear you'll restrain her when the time comes. Jaime's laugh was low, sad. I can restrain her body, never her mind. Then we pray her mind sees reason. They reached the knight's training yard where Joffrey practiced archery under the tutelage of Sandor Clegane. The boy loosed arrow after arrow, many striking wide. Each miss drew a guttural curse from the hound. Tyrion studied the boy's stance. Shoulders high, elbows tense. The posture of someone who expects applause for drawing the bowstring alone. Majesty, Tyrion announced, bowing. Jaime followed suit, though with less depth. Joffrey lowered the bow, sweat damping golden curls. Uncle, he glanced at Jaime. "Sir." Tyrion approached. "Your valor rings through the city, yet there is a greater stage." He let the words sit, like bait on water. Joffrey's eyes brightened. "What stage?" "The northern wall. 300 feet of ice, where men become legends. The enemy marches, ghouls, sorcery. A king who rides there first is a king sung for centuries." "Vendebornchan." Joffrey smirked, glancing to Sandor. "The wall, dog. Think you the cold will make your bones ache?" Sandor grunted. "Cold's an improvement over stench of this sty." Jaime folded arms. "The venture carries danger, your grace." The boy's chin lifted. "A king fears no danger. Mother says kings shape danger to their will." He drew another arrow and let fly. It thudded into straw 2 hands too low. Still, he gleamed with self-satisfaction. "When do we ride?" 2 days, Tyrion said. "After your father's funeral rites, you'll lead a procession of chosen knights." Joffrey nodded. "I want Tyrell, Ser Loras, and the Hound." "Of course," Tyrion agreed. "And a new guard, Sir Garnet of Fair Isle, famed for cold weather hunts." Garnet was a sellsword discreetly loyal to Varys. Joffrey needed keepers. "I shall inform Mother," Joffrey said. "No need," Tyrion said at once. "Your mother's grief still runs deep. Surprise her with your courage. It will heal her faster than words." Jaime's eyes widened a fraction, but he said nothing. When they left the yard, Jaime shoved Tyrion's shoulder. "Playing with wildfire." "Building a bridge of it," Tyrion answered. "Pray we cross before it ignites." At dawn, bells for Robert's funeral tolled. An ocean of black and crimson flooded the packed streets, as lords and commoners both navigated a cobble maze strewn with alder blossoms. The body, encased in gold-trimmed casket, processed toward the great sept. Tyrion walked beside Ned and Renly behind the pallbearers. Cersei, veiled in midnight gauze, glided ahead, one hand wrapped around Joffrey's elbow like a jeweler guarding a gem. For a fleeting moment, Tyrion pitied her, everything she'd arranged slipping like sand through desperate fingers. Yet, pity was a luxury he could not afford. Inside the sept, the high septon droned eulogies that crashed dull against the marble ribs of the ancient nave. Knights sweated in chainmail. Ladies wept into perfumed kerchiefs, and beggars clustered near pillars singing ragged hymns for alms. When the sermon ended and the final hymn soared, Tyrion gestured to Janos Slynt. The gold cloak captain departed quietly through a side door. Minutes later, as mourners spilled into sunlight, horns sounded along Rivergate Road. Tywin Lannister's van, banners of crimson roaring. Dust rose from columns of plate-shod troops. Cersei's expression vacillated from relief to consternation. Joffrey clapped his hands like a child greeting a juggler. The great lion had arrived sooner than predicted. Tyrion's breath caught. He strode down the steps to meet the oncoming lord. Tywin dismounted with cat-like grace, green eyes appraising the city walls first. Then his diminutive son. "Tyrion," he said, voice dispassionate, yet something in its timbre suggested curiosity. "The realm bleeds rumor." "Truth often masquerades as rumor," Tyrion replied. Tywin's brows arched. "Then, speak." Tyrion led him into the courtyard beyond stray ears. He spoke of White Walkers, Wall and Jeopardy, Alliance of Houses, Jon Snow's heritage. He spoke of Tywin's legacy at stake, a realm saved rather than conquered. Tywin listened, silent. Only a flicker of eyelids betrayed thought. At length he said, "Targaryen blood claims the north, and you would have me bolster it. Why not seat Cersei's lines secure and welcome winter behind impregnable gates of gold?" "Meh." "Because ice does not yield to gold," Tyrion said. "And your house dies with the living if the dead prevail." Tywin studied him, then the distant wall of the keep. "You will show me proof." "Ride north and I will," Tyrion promised. A long pause. Tywin's jaw flexed. "Very well. We ride." The exodus from King's Landing began under storm-thick skies 2 days later, a cavalcade straddling ambition and desperation. At its head rode King Joffrey Baratheon in gilded half-armor. Stag horns polished, cloak of white wolf fur at Ned Stark's insistence. Beside him clattered Sandor Clegane and Sir Loras Tyrell. Ned's litter followed, though he frequently rode short stints, astride Grey Wind's Grand Colt. Refusing weakness, Tywin's host, 40,000 strong, flowed behind like a river of steel, banners snapping with lion rampant, the music of kettle drums echoing. From the Dornish contingent banners of red sun and spear fluttered. Highgarden's thorny rose magnets brightened the column. House after house answered summons, some from fealty, some from fear of being last. Cersei remained behind under pretext of managing the capital, but in truth to marshal whatever plots she could weave amid empty corridors. Tyrion had left Varys and Bronn behind with explicit orders. Watch the queen, muzzle trouble, hold the city until return or ruin. A gray cost settled upon his chest, but he marched anyway. Northward, always north. For weeks the great host trudged up the King's Road. Winter loomed never distant. Milk-white rime-coated leaves, breath-plumed thick, morning frost clutched every buckle. Along the route farm folk emerged, gawking at the boy king in furs, cheering, pressing bread loaves and garlands. Joffrey preened, basking in acclaim. Tyrion wondered how long before cold-trimmed arrogance. At Moat Cailin, they rendezvoused with a grisly procession of Karstark, Manderly, and Umber men leading stringers of shaggy oxen. Sledges laden with cedar oil, tar kegs, rough-hewn dragonglass spearheads, and blacksmith forges bolted to wagons. The North welcomed them with stone faces, reserving open hearts for Ned, who endured embraces from lords hardened by rumor of his death. When they sighted Winterfell's rooftops rising from white fields, horns blew, answered by roars from ramparts. Sansa and Arya had left Winterfell long months ago, yet the castle thrummed with life. Lady Catelyn commanded supply lines. Robb, grown broad across shoulders, mustered every youth able to draw bow. Bran, perched upon Hodor's shoulders, oversaw arrow fletching. When Joan's raven arrived, Bran wept over the letter, but he dried tears and ordered more arrows anyway. Now, as the southern host spilled through the winter town, Catelyn met Tyrion at the gate. She looked older, grief-etched, but her handshake was firm. "You bring lions and roses into my hall," she said. "They bite. If they bite Starks, you bleed them." "Nans. I bleed easier than most," Tyrion replied. "Pray they favor softer flesh." In Winterfell's great hall, beneath banners of direwolf and stag newly intertwined, councils convened daily. Tywin met with Catelyn, Manderly, Rickard Karstark. Oberyn parleyed with Greyjon, who distrusted Dornish ways. Davos negotiated shipments up White Knife to haul obsidian mined from Dragonstone's belly. All the while ravens flapped in and out. Reports of skirmishes at White Harbor where whites had washed ashore, teeth like sharks. Robb briefed them on outriders returning from the last river. Small hamlets empty, no sign of fighting. Fires cold, animals gone. Taken, Benjen concluded, face grim. Or joined the ranks. Tywin, seated near hearth, fingers steeped, asked, "How many?" "Thousands," Benjen answered, gathering like stormfront. Tyrion watched his father digest the number, saw the faint twitch at his left eye, the first hint that Tywin Lannister truly believed. The combined army marched again, leaving Winterfell to the guardianship of Bran and Catelyn. Robb rode with Grey Wind trotting, Theon at his side. Old bonds renewed by looming terror. They crossed icy hills where gusts howled like lost children, trekked through wolfswood pines sagging beneath rime. Fires at night painted snow orange, the murmur of tens of thousands sleeping the restless sleep of those who dread dawn. On the fifth night out, Tyrion stood atop a snow rise outside camp. Ghost appeared silently, white against white. The direwolf nuzzled his palm, then trotted away, pausing to look back. Tyrion followed. They wound through sleeping lines, through sentry rings, until they reached a small ridge, where Ned Stark waited wrapped in sable. The moon silvered his visage, making hollows around tired eyes. "The beast summons you," Ned said quietly. "And thus I came." Ghost settled at Ned's feet, gaze on the horizon where faint pulses of cold light shimmered. Tyrion saw them too. Curtains of pale blue and green, ghost light dancing above the wall, though they stood 50 leagues distant. "The Aurora," Tyrion whispered. "I saw them once in Bravos. They meant nothing to me then. And in the show, they always meant something," Ned said. "We just didn't know what." A raven croaked from a stunted spruce. A scroll dangled from its leg. Ghost padded forward, and the bird fluttered to Tyrion's shoulder. Trembling fingers untied the strip. He read it by moon. Gate holding. Supplies dwindling. New weapon effective. Come soon. It bore Jones' sigil of flame-wreathed paw. Tyrion's chest tightened. He handed it to Ned. The Lord swallowed. Tears bright. "One more march," Ned said, voice low. "One more." They reached the shadow of the wall 3 days later. There, the earth rose in jagged rent hills, last convulsions before the immensity of ice. The wall eclipsed sky, a monolith of sapphire gloom streaked with pale cracks like marble veining. From base to crest flared glow of braziers, but near the eastern flank, some fires guttered low. Across wind-blown flats sprawled heaps of corpses frozen in grotesque tableau. Ravens circled, picking, but the biggest feast lay further north where no bird dared. Mormont himself greeted the arriving host upon the King's Road approach, cheeks blackened by frostburn, yet eyes blazing relief. "Never thought I'd cheer Southern banners," he growled. Tywin strode forward, cloak white with rime. "Save your cheered copper for later. Where is the enemy?" Mormont pointed beyond the gates. 7 leagues north they mass. Our scouts saw them. A glacier of bone and ice. Tyrion scanned the ramparts, searching, and found him, Jon Snow, armor-patched, cheek gashed, but alive. The boy's eyes met his, and in them swirled exhaustion and steel. He descended a ladder. Ghost clambered ahead. They met halfway between walls of soldiers and rangers, and though rank protocol demanded bow or salute, they simply clasped forearms like brothers. "You came," Jon said hoarse. "We ran," Tyrion corrected, managing a grin. The dead were poor hosts, and the South worse company. Behind him, Joffrey dismounted, squinting at the monstrous wall. Steam puffed from his nostrils. "Cold as a crone's kiss," he muttered. Renly approached, wearing a cloak of green sable. "Majesty, welcome to the end of the world." Benjen clasped Jon's shoulder. "Show them the weapons." Together, they climbed to the practice yard inside Castle Black. Barrels of dragonglass arrowheads and spears lined the wall, and in the center lay a monstrous ballista, its bolt embedded with fused iron and obsidian. Gendry wiped soot-fatigued brow. "Smiths working day and night," he said. Tywin examined a spearhead. Glass. He rapped it on stone. It did not chip. "What magic tempers this?" "Dragonfire," Davos said. "Dragonstone forges." Oberyn offered a wry smile. "Fire turns to stone, turns to death for ice. A tidy circle." Joffrey picked up a dagger, tested weight. "Sharp enough for traitors too." Jon spoke, and his voice carried authority Ned had never heard. "Pledge your swords to the Night's Watch. Here, there are no stags or lions or roses, only the living. Swear, and we fight side by side." Silence. Then Ned laid ice before him. "I pledge." The ripple followed. Tywin lowering his warhammer hilt. Renly, Davos, Oberyn, Robb raising his sword. Even Loras kneeling. Joffrey hesitated, glancing at Clegane. The hound knelt without ceremony. At last, stung by pride, Joffrey knelt too, though his words barely whispered. "I swear." A great cheer erupted from ramparts as thousands of voices merged. "Night gathers, and now my watch begins." The assault came at twilight, 2 nights later. A storm rolled first, black thunderheads shedding sleet that rattled upon pauldrons. Lightning danced like mad serpents above pine spires. In that strobe the dead had advanced in silence, and their captains, taller, colder, wrought an orchestra of fear. Yet upon the wall and across the valley burned 1,000 new braziers of oil, Bolts glimmered knocked and ready. Trebuchets groaned under dragon glass payload wrapped in oily cloth, awaiting spark. Tyrion moved among soldiers, dwarf in patched furs, offering last words. Aim for the pale eyes, the joints. If a walker shatters, so do its thralls near. Kill captains, save friends. He found Jaime tightening straps on white enameled breastplate, determined to wash Kingslayer's stain in blood of night. Beneath the wall's central gate, Ned assembled a vanguard of northern swords and Dornish spears under Oberyn. Jon and Benjen took rangers into the forest via secret sally port. Their mission: slay the lieutenants guiding this horde. Mormont commanded wall defenses alongside Tywin, whose disdain for cold could not blunt his relish for strategy. The first wave crashed like surf of bone. Fire trenches ignited brighter than before, fed by southern oil. Whites shriveled, yet torrents beyond leapt over charred remains, pressing. Trebuchets launched blazing boulders of dragon glass. Each impact blossomed into starburst crystals, vaporizing scores. Sandor Clegane, fear of flame forgotten, swung a torch-lanced polearm, cursing gaily. Joffrey, to his credit or folly, stood just behind firing line, loosing arrows shrill and wild until one struck a walker's helm, shattering it. Luck, but luck cheered men around him. But the dead were endless. Hours stretched, arms numbed, screams punctured night. On the wall's top ramp, Renly ducked a crystal arrow that sliced off his plume. He laughed shakily, then drove dragonglass sword into a corpse's eye socket. Loras guarded his flank, Rose helm splattered with black ice ichor. Yet, for every walker slain, two more emerged. Female forms in ice corselets, children with hollow sockets, giants of frost who swung tree trunks. Tywin ordered scorpions to target the giants. One bolt pierced a giant's knee. It toppled, crushing whites under tons of frozen muscle. Below, Ned's vanguard met the onslaught where trenches failed. Ice swords clashed with Valyrian steel. Sparks hissed into snow. Oberyn's spear danced flames, each stab detonating crystal bursts. Still, they were driven back yard by yard. Ned fought with left hand. Right still weak, but ice sliced through walker helm and torso in great cleaving arcs. A pale warrior answered, blade meeting blade. Ice shivered, but held. The walker's strength was terrible, but Ned ducked low. Severed knee, then upward slash beheaded it. He barely rose before three whites collapsed around him, freed from mastery. Thunder rolled, yet not thunder. From the north, an unearthly bellow reverberated, deeper than mountains. Heads turned. Over treeline emerged the shape of something immense, wings spanning half a league, a dragon, scales molten silver under roiling storm flashes. On its back clung a figure cloaked in black and scarlet. In collective gasp, the living parted. The dragon descended with grace impossible for its size, a tempest of snow swirling about its talons. When it settled, the rider dismounted. A woman, hair silver gold, eyes lilac, bright in torchlight, Daenerys Targaryen. At her side stalked a smaller dragon, ebony green. Tyrion, stunned, stepped forward. Your Grace. She inclined her head. Dragons answer fire's call. Her gaze surveyed carnage. You kept my nephew from me long enough. Jon fights in the forest, he said, voice hoarse. Then we burn the path to him. She vaulted onto the great dragon's shoulders. With resonant draconic cry, it leapt skyward, wings beating hurricanes. Fire erupted. A column of white-hot flame carving furrows through whites, melting ice captains to steaming mist. The living roared, hearts inflamed. Within the forest, Jon and Benjen stalked between shadow and snow, rangers in tow. They found the heart of darkness at a glade ringed by weirwood saplings. Leaves blackened, carved spirals on each trunk bleeding sap like frozen tears. At the center stood a single white walker lord, antlers of ice crowning, chest marked by swirling glyphs, eyes blazing. Around him circled 7 lesser captains. They chanted in guttural language. Above, aurora blades twined, funneling power into their master. The air stank of cold so pure it numbed lungs. Jon signaled. Archers loosed dragon glass shafts. 2 captains shattered outright. The others whirled, spears raised. Rangers charged, steel meeting frost. Benjen grappled a walker, rammed a dagger into its spine, then cursed as numbness crawled his arm. Jon ducked a spear thrust, rolled, came upright inside a ring of killers. The Walker Lord lifted an ice hand. Crystal shards burst from ground. One ripped through Jon's calf. He fell, pain red hot. Ghost launched, jaws locking on the Lord's throat. The beast of ice seized the direwolf, hurled him. Ghost landed yelping but rose again, white fur matted crimson. Jon's vision blurred. He forced himself up, grit snow into wound to numb it. Felt blood pulse sluggishly. The Walker Lord advanced, spear leveled. It whispered through air. Jon parried with steel, the blade shattering. He staggered, reached instinctively, and found not his dagger, but the dragon-glassen hilt Benjen thrust into his hand. "Kill him," Benjen rasped, grappling another walker. Jon lunged. The Lord's spear jabbed his side but skidded off ribs. Jon rammed the obsidian blade beneath the creature's chin. Fissures crackled over its face, spreading like spiderweb. Then it exploded in a blizzard scream. Fragments scything wights and walkers. Every corpse in the glade collapsed, limbs twitching. The aurora above flickered, then dimmed. Benjen leaned on a broken trunk, panting. "We broke their heart." Jon collapsed to one knee. "Not yet. The army still moves." Thunder of wings answered. Daenerys dragon swept overhead, flame churning. Whites ignited, forest ablaze in pillars of green and orange. She circled, spotting Jon, banking low. Dragon's shadows beat like dark hearts upon the snow. She dismounted before him. For a moment they simply stared. Something ancient thrumming between shared blood. "Blood of my blood," she whispered in Valyrian. Jon managed a nod. "And fire of mine." Ghost limped to Daenerys, sniffed, then sat guarding. Benjen gazed in wonder. The roar of battle echoed in distance. Wall trenches, horns, human voices. "Ride," Jon said, gesturing to the wall. "Their lines crumble but need the hammer blow." She extended a hand. He clasped her forearm. "Come," she said. 2 riders. Benjen hesitated, but Jon urged him. "Rally, Rangers. We'll strike from above." "My." He vaulted behind her onto silver scales as warm as bathwater. Blood loss tingled, but fire poured through him. The dragon sensed, and its wings thundered down, lifting them upon a tidal surge of wind. They banked over the field. The host below looked up. Starks, Lannisters, Dornish, Night's Watch, all raising weapons and voices in unison as dragonfire scythed. White Walker ranks. Giant frost creatures shattered, captains evaporated. Whites burned like parchment. Where flame passed, renewed courage sparked. Tywin thrust a dragon glass, tipped standard into toppled Walker remains. Banners singing in new dawn. Ned, staggering but unbroken, pressed charge across trenches, clearing last remnants. Oberyn vaulted a wall of corpses, turning spear into swirling sun, slaying the final captain, leading breach upon the eastern stair. When at last the last walker fell, the whites as one collapsed, lifeless. A hush rolled across the battlefield like sigh of world exhaling. Ash drifted, mingling with snow. The dragon alighted before the gate. Jon dismounted, swayed. Daenerys steadied him. Ned limped forward, eyes glossy. Father and son embraced, awkward, armor clashing, but hearts full. Tywin approached, removed helm, hair brilliant white in dawn's blush. He surveyed Daenerys, inclined head. "Targaryen blood," he pronounced. "Fire and gold." She smiled faintly. "Fire and ice, Lord Lannister." Together, they forged dawn. Joffrey strode up, face soot-streaked, gaze awed by dragon yet brimming with juvenile arrogance. "You will kneel to your king," he declared. Daenerys' laugh rang like chimes. Jon laid a hand on her arm. "Majesty," he said to Joffrey, voice calm but iron-lined, "the wall has no king but duty. Kneel, Stand. Your choice means less than what we build now. Joffrey bristled, but Sandor's hand on shoulder stilled him. Jaime watched, silent, speculative. Mormont emerged atop gatehouse, roaring to assembly. The dawn breaks unbroken. Cheers thundered. Horns answered from Eastwatch, from Westwatch, echoing across tundra. Dottie! The dead lay melted or shattered. Yet winter remained vast. Jon met Daenerys on the wall's edge that night, stars blazing cold white. Fires flickered below, men singing low to forget horrors. Wind teased silver hair across her face. This isn't victory, she said quietly. Only reprieve. Reprieve will turn into peace, Jon replied. If the realm unites. She touched his bandaged shoulder. Ice and fire. He closed his eyes, felt the union of destiny's pulse. Below, Tyrion drafted the articles of the Watchfire Pact, vows binding houses to Wall's defense. Tywin and Ned signed first, their quills scratching history. Oberyn added Dornish son. Renly reached Rose. Even Greyjoy envoy, humbled by sight of dragon, scratched Kraken seal. When at last Tyrion set down pen, he gazed across hall of black stone littered with broken sigils. He thought of journey still ahead, Cersei's reckoning, the rebuilding of kingdoms, the forging of dragonglass across every forge in 7 kingdoms. But he also thought of the boy he'd first met on Winterfell's roof, wrestling with bastard name, and smiled. Outside, the aurora returned, but gentler now, ripples of rose and jade. Jon and Daenerys watched it dance. Somewhere, deep in heart of the wall, magic long dormant hummed anew, threads of old spells wreck knotting in presence of shared blood. Dragon and wolf, prince and queen, and far below, where winter rivers met, seeds slumbering beneath snow, sensed new warmth trickling through ice, whispers of spring. They waited, as all living things do, for light and time, and the resolve of those sworn to protect them. For the first time in living memory, the realm breathed the thin, fragile air of hope. Canon, end in the night. Moonlight washed the wall in argent solitude, erasing the grime of battle, yet leaving its memory sharp on every breath of the garrison. While exhausted men slumped beneath rough wool and battered mail, Jon Snow could not sleep. He paced the topmost rampart in company with ghosts, and the low hush of wind sliding between crenellations, feeling each heartbeat as a distant drum. The victory had been real. Armies had witnessed a miracle of dragonfire searing the hosts of the dead. But somewhere beyond their ring of torches, the silent north lurked, wounded yet unbroken. He knew deep in bone and sinew the long night's hand still pressed upon them. On the stones before the King's Road stair he found Daenerys. She wore a doublet of rough-spun black, hardened by soot, yet her bearing was that of a queen born to palaces of marble. The silver gilt of her hair caught stray starlight, turning each strand into a fine glimmer. Her great dragon. Some called him Aegon, reborn though she had named him Sekizares in memory of her mother's tongue. Curled like a dozing mountain at the foot of the wall, breath rumbling in restful thunder. Smaller Drogon, jet, copper-pinioned eyes molten gold, patrolled overhead, a black silhouette against constellations sharp as arrowheads. Daenerys sensed Jon's approach and turned. No smile, no stiffness, only the tempered regard of someone who had walked through cities of slave chains and deserts of broken promises. Rest evades you as well, he said softly. I flew into death cold, just hours gone, she murmured. The blood is slow to forget the sky's claw. She studied his bandaged calf. Your pain, a familiar companion. He joined her at the crenell's edge. They call dawn hope, yet dawn also reveals every wound daylight must carry. What color is hope for men with scars? Whatever color they paint it, she answered. Ash may coat the hands, but still we shape the future. They remained a span in hush, surveying the valley where communal pyres crackled. Smoldering plumes marched south on a fickle breeze, carrying away the last of Walker debris in a hush of spark-edged flakes. At length Daenerys said, councils convene at first light. Lords quarrel, because war is all they know. But they will yield for the sake of their own seedbeds. They must. Ganin. Jon brushed wind-blown ice crystals off parapet stone. The realm has cocked ears toward this wall for 1,000 years. Tonight it listened, a little. Tomorrow it may return to petty songs. She looked at him, eyes bright. You think like a maester and fight like a wolf. And you? I still dream of the throne of swords, but I have seen something grander than any chair. She gestured at the endless north, at the citadel of frost holding the sky. I would rather rule hearts that faced this and lived. Jon studied her profile, stern yet luminous, and something within him warmed. In that moment, the wall no longer felt like a prison but a ledger of vigil bound by 2 signatures. He opened his mouth to say more, but clanking boots announced a messenger. A steward, pale, lantern-jawed, bowed. My Lord Snow, Queen Daenerys. The lords assemble in the king's tower. Lord Tywin demands your immediate attendance. Daenerys arched a brow. Demands? Jon sighed. Some habits cling even after winter. The king's tower hall, once a drafty cradle for raven cages, now thrummed with tension thick enough to cloud torches. A makeshift dais had been fashioned of plank and iron candelabra. Beneath it, benches formed concentric arcs. Tywin Lannister sat central, clad in snow-dusted gold plate. A lion's head pauldron darkened by soot, eyes reflecting lamplight like twin shards of emerald quartz. Ned Stark occupied a seat 2 spaces away, face gaunt but eyes resolute. Between them perched Grand Maester Aemon, bundled in furs. Frail yet fierce, his white eyes unblinking. Arrayed around, Oberyn Martell. Crimson cloak free of bloodstains only because a squire had combed them clean. Renly Baratheon, tunic embroidered with green stags. Davos Seaworth, Robb Stark, Joffrey Baratheon brooding behind a table, loaded with vellum documents. Jaime armored in Kingsguard enameled white, Sandor Clegane leaning like a surly mastiff near an ALK. When Jon and Daenerys entered, murmurs rippled. Aemon tapped cane upon planks. We begin. Tywin rose, voice as clear as bells across frozen lake. The wall stands, but the empire it defends is fractured. To triumph again, we must decide where command lies. He indicated Daenerys. By blood you are Targaryen, rightful heir by some reckonings. By oath you, Lord Jon, are a sworn brother, and if Lyanna Stark's letters are genuine, prince of the same blood. Which of you wears the mantle? The realm tolerates 1 crown, not 2. Daenerys lifted her chin. Mantles are woven by people. I will not wrestle my nephew. Jon answered. Nor I my aunt. Oberyn chuckled darkly. Generous of each, but crowns crave heads. Ned's cane thumped. Perhaps the time for thrones ended the moment dead things marched. Renly frowned. A realm without a king. Chaos. Davos spread calloused hands. We just fought a night without banners. Tywin's lip curled. Men require symbols. He faced Jon. If you refuse the crown, the dragons may claim what lions surrendered. Daenerys spoke. I claim only as guardian until each corner of the realm returns voice. Call it a regency of fire. She paused. Yet I do not seek to rule alone. The wall's defense demands more than legacy. It demands unity. The eyes flicked between her and Jon. Ned said slowly, 2 rulers, but 1 realm, a queen of dragons, a king of wolves, ice and fire. Twin regents. Joffrey slammed fist upon parchment. I am the king. Tywin's gaze swept to his grandson, cold as arrow points. A king who fled court to chase glory. Jaime's gauntlet creaked as he touched Joffrey's shoulder. You have shown bravery, but now bravery requires surrender of throne. Joffrey's face reddened. Even you? Especially me, Jaime replied quietly. Tyrion emerged from near a ledger. Our nephew need not abdicate fully. A line of succession persists. Yet regency by consensus may salvage legitimacy. He addressed the hall. Let the boy remain prince, heir to a future realm healed. Meanwhile a council of ice and fire governs. Jon Snow as protector of the realm, Daenerys Targaryen as queen regent. Decisions require both seals to hold force. Renly raised an eyebrow. And what of those who fear dragons? Daenerys' voice softly broke the murmurs. Then fear protects them. My fire sears their enemies, not their harvest. Ned looked to Tywin. Do you accept? Tywin weighed like a merchant summing tallies. He at last inclined his head. Provided my armies return south only when winter recedes. The north cannot sustain 40,000 lions on salted pork. A staggered withdrawal, Davos suggested. Half remain with Tywin, or Jaime, commanding forts between the wall and the last river. Half rotate south each moon turn to guard their homelands. Robb nodded. Carhold and White Harbor can quarter some. Tiles of bread taste better than tiles of tombstone. Tywin's eyes narrowed, but he gave terse assent. Joffrey, shaking, muttered, I should kill the lot of you. Sandor cuffed him gently. Speak less. Breathe more. The Grand Maester exhaled a trembling breath. Then decree is made. Bring ink. Quills scratched. 2 seals melted. A wolf's head mounted upon crossed swords. A 3-headed dragon wreathed in sun. A 3rd imprint. The crowned stag rested in pale wax at document's base as sign of the heir's ascent, though Joffrey's hand quivered while crafting the mark. When they finished, Daenerys rose. I pledge first act, grain from the reach and Dorne to every village between neck and last hearth. Second, forge every furnace to dragonglass production. Third, build beacons along the wall to warn faster than ravens. Jon added, and fourth, appoint a watch of the dawn, rotating detachments from each great house. No man or woman returns south until they've served a winter in the north. Murmurs of surprise, but Tywin approved, for it kept rival lords busy. Oberyn smirked. Dorne will send sun-singed spearmen to freeze their passions. Renly laughed. The south will become penitent. Maester Aemon struck wood thrice to seal meeting. Snow cloaked the courtyard when Tyrion found Bran in a wheelchair contraption of his own devising atop the king's tower parapet. 2 ravens perched on the boy's arms, whispering as though exchanging secrets. Bran smiled when Tyrion arrived. They speak in riddles, Bran said. Like you. I hope my riddles prove less messy, Tyrion replied, leaning against stone. I need your eyes. Bran's face turned solemn. You wish to know if more walkers gather. I wish to see threats before they hatch. Bran closed his eyes. The ravens fluttered skyward, wings black against white breath of sky. His pupils glazed milky gray, and for a heartbeat, Tyrion glimpsed something ancient ripple the boy's features. When Bran returned, voice shook. In the far reaches past the frost fangs, a glacier weeps blue fire. Something stirs beneath, but not yet. Time, perhaps moons. Tyrion's skin prickled. Our reprieve shrinks. Bran added, watch the krakens. The drowned god's men gather ships, uneasy. They taste weakness. Nah. Tyrion thanked him and departed, mind gears grinding. Preparations consumed weeks. Mines of dragonstone belched smoke as smiths, guided by Gendry and Qyburn, fused dragonglass with iron cores, producing arrowheads and spear points of black-red sheen. Dothraki Khalazars, arriving on ships from Essos, galloped across white plains, their ox whistling as they cleaved straw effigies. Greyjoy longships tried a raid on White Harbor. Manderly galleys torched 2, capturing the rest. Davos parleyed with the Ironborn captains beneath Westwatch's gloom, offering trade concessions for loyalty. Some bent knee, others spat and were shackled. Tywin oversaw fortifications south of the wall. Timber keeps with stone-faced bastions at Queen's Crown, Longbarrow, Last Heart. He drilled composite hosts of Westerland's knights and northern spearmen, forging discipline by example, sharing tents, bread, and latrine duty. Soldiers grumbled but obeyed. Daenerys trained her dragons in controlled bursts, carving trenches that later filled with oil to become fire moats. Jon orchestrated rescue sorties deep past the wall, retrieving scattered wildling clans who'd fled the first assault. Tormund Giantsbane, begrimed, surviving, accepted amnesty in exchange for free folk pledging to defend human children. Better wolves than corpses, he told Jon with a booming laugh. Sansa and Arya studied under Old Nan and a Braavosi water dancer respectively. Arya sparred each dusk with needled rapier newly forged of Valyrian steel gifted by Tywin, as proof of amity. Bran guided ravens, eyes mapping the night frost for signs of cracks in the ice. Ghost and Nymeria, Arya's lost direwolf, returned with a pack from deep forest, patrolled camps. Joffrey, to preserve ego, accepted command of a small cavalry honor guard. Jaime oversaw his training. Sandor insisted on live steel. Within a moon, the prince's sword work improved, but his arrogance bent thinner each bruise. One midnight, Jaime found Joffrey weeping beside a pyre where knights he'd led had burned from frostbite. The Kingslayer said nothing, merely sat until tears ceased. Spring brimmed unseen beneath snows when a raven shrieked across Castle Black with wings scorched. It carried a single glyph etched in ash, a spiral ring. Bran fainted upon reading. Vision later told of the glacier Bran had sensed, now cracked entirely, disgorging something not Walker, but older. A web of cold consciousness exploring the world. Daenerys convened emergency council. Bran lay pale on litter, eyes open, voice distant, and mind vast. It wakes. The walkers served it, but it is no king, no creature, an echo of the long night itself. Maester Aemon gripped Jon's hand. The great other. Oberyn snorted. Not tales for campfires. Bran struggled upright. It reaches through living minds. Already, I feel it. He clenched fists until knuckles blanched. We must strike before it feeds on the Wyrnets. The what? Tyrion asked. The root memory of the children of the forest, Bran breathed. All faces carved in weirwoods are its windows. If it consumes that river of magic, all prophecy ends, every future fixed in ice. Jon knelt. Where? In the cavern of Night's heart, Bran whispered. Beyond the shivering sea beneath the frozen shore. Silence. Map consultations revealed the place. A legendary grotto carved below cliffs north of Evenfall River, reachable only by sleigh across a labyrinth of crevasse fields. Daenerys slapped table. We fly. Aemon's blind gaze narrowed. Dragons in such cold may falter. Then wolves guard them, Jon said. Gia Enti free folk know those paths. Tywin exhaled. A strike team, small, fast, Jon, Daenerys, select rangers, some unsullied Tormund's raiders. He looked to Jaime. And a lion or two. I ride, Jaime replied at once. Oberyn planted spear butt on plank. And a red viper. He grinned. Renly raised a hand. I hold the wall in your absence. Queen's regency passes to me and Lord Stark. Ned nodded. Agreed. Within a day, a war council drafted the Frostfire expedition. Supplies compressed. Dragonglass bombs shaped like flanged gourds. Wildfire pots, risky but necessary. Valyrian steel axes, weirwood seeds blessed by children of the forest emissaries who arrived unexpectedly from hidden caves, eyes luminous with ancient sorrow. They entrusted Bran with an obsidian disc etched with runes. Key, the leaf-masked child whispered. Orlok. The expedition left before dawn under dimming aurora. Sekizaris, Drogon, and Viserion. Gold as pale dawn. Flew vanguard. Their riders swaddled in bearskins lined with goat hair. On the ground, 6 sleighs drawn by shaggy muskoxen carried Bran's litter, Bran's ravens, Maester Aemon for counsel, and Tormund's 40 raiders. Ghost led point with Nymeria and her pack. They crossed terrain few maps dared mark. The white waste, where fog smothered sound and voles froze mid-scurry. The sky dimmed to twilight even at midday. A pall Jon felt in bones. They fought ice wraiths, smaller cousins of walkers whose claws left midnight frost in flesh. They burned them with dragonglass torches. One night, a blizzard roared so thick, they anchored dragons to pillars of ice by iron chains, lest the beasts drift with gale. On 20th day, Bran's eyes erupted black tears. He pointed to a rift between 2 bluffs, where snow whirled upward rather than down. Gateway, he hissed. They assembled. Jon walked beside Daenerys, each armed with Valyrian steel, long claw and dark sister. Blade once lost in Essos, now gifted by children. Tormund carried a great hammer. Oberyn twirled twin spears, blades glimmering purple hue. Jaime brandished a dragonglass dagger with lion pommel. The crevasse yawned in blue gloom. Frost flowers, delicate lattice of ice petals, sprouted along walls, yet when touched, they hissed steam. They descended narrow steps, hewn into rock, deeper, deeper, until glow of torches warped. Stalactites hung like crystal fangs. At depth, caverns widened into a dome, lit by radiant ice. In center hovered a sphere of glassy darkness, pulsing like a silent heart. Around it, spines of glimmering frost radiated into labyrinthine tunnels. Root veins of the Weirnet. Jon felt them humming with memory, laughter in Winterfell courtyards, screams of the sack, songs of summer isles, every voice swirling in living archive. Bran's litter halted. He climbed, wobbled, but magic steadied him. The obsidian disc vibrated in his hand. We seal it here or it consumes everything. Daenerys stepped forward. How? Disc must be placed within heart before core blends with net. Fire and blood anchor the lock. His pale eyes fixed on Jon. Stark and Targaryen. Both. Valyrian blades to carve the path. Once sealed, you must flee. The cavern collapses. Neste, Oberyn muttered. Always collapse. Jaime surveyed spines. Walkers. Tormund grunted. I smell their stench, but none near. Together Jon and Daenerys approached Sphere. A cold beyond cold seeped from it, numbing teeth. Their blades glowed faint, not with heat, but some resonance of song. With synchronized stroke, they sliced two fissures into outer membrane. Slick black mist poured, but their closeness to each other kept chill at bay. Bran advanced, every step a miracle. He pressed Disc into slime. Scream erupted, soundless, yet every mind felt it. Wail song of despair, roar of endless night. Ice roots writhed. Trebles of frost spiderweb cracked overhead, ceiling trembling. Bran slumped. Jon grabbed him. Run, Jaime shouted. They sprinted. Columns shattered, raining shards. Sphere imploded inward, pulling air. Torches snuffed. Dragons above roared. Tremor quaked. They spilled into crevasse mouth as avalanche of ice thundered behind. Propelled by unseen fist. Reaching surface, they mounted dragons, wings beating as ground heaved. The crevasse belched a comet of blue fire that curved skyward, then faded into glitter. Where Gateway stood now, lay only smooth plain. Return to the wall was delirium of exhaustion. Messengers met them leagues out. The southern beacons had flared crimson when Glacier collapsed. Simultaneously, every weirwood tree from beyond the wall to Summerhall wept red sap, then fell quiet, faces serene. Bran slept for 2 days. Pulse faint, but steady. Aemon declared the network secure. The Great Other silenced, perhaps forever. When at last Jon and Daenerys presented themselves before the assembled armies, cheers spilled like breaking dam. Tywin bowed first, something close to pride flickering his jade eyes. Ned blessed them in old northern speech. Even Cersei, brought north in gilded litter after her attempts to regain power sputtered, offered a stiff curtsy, perhaps recognizing futility of vengeance in face of salvation. Night after victory feast, Jon stood atop tallest tower of Queenscrown, staring at sweep of stars. Daenerys joined, silent until she placed hand over his. Eye to horizon, she said. The realm will ask us to sit a single throne. He answered, then we build a long bench. She laughed softly, and rule side by side. Jon faced her. I never wanted rule, just peace. Then we anchor peace, she said. She reached into cloak, drew a simple band of weirwood carved with swirling dragons and deerwolves entwined. The children gave it me, said fate wove us long before our fathers were breath. Jon's breath fogged between them. Marriage, bond, official under gods old and new. She searched his gaze. Not for crown, but for future. He took ring, pulse thundered. Yes. They embraced. Ghost bayed, and Drogon wheeled overhead, exhaling harmless sparks. Spring unfurled at last, hesitant but earnest. Runnels of meltwater carved songs in stone. Wildflowers speckled fields south of the wall. Purple crocus, half dreaming after generations. In Old Town, Archmaesters penned the Chronicle of Frostfire, praising joint regency. In King's Landing, Joffrey studied under Grand Maester Connington, learning that patience outlasts spite. Sansa corresponded with Marguerite Tyrell to rebuild queenly graces for a court that served realm, not vanity. Arya sailed east with Nymeria to reunite with Gendry envoy, forging dragonglass, water dancing across seas. At Winterfell, Tywin supervised a library wing dedicated to memory of the fallen, donating gold. Though scribes noted, he insisted on modest plaque rather than grand statue. Jaime remained at Castle Black to train recruits, white cloak stained by smoke yet bright where sun touched. Oberyn founded an academy among dunes of Dorne teaching spears, tipped with obsidian. He named it Ilias Heart. Jon and Daenerys married beneath the heart tree within Godswood of Winterfell. Snowflakes fell, though grass greened, creating a hush as though world leaned to listen. Bran performed rite in dialect older than High Valyrian. Ned placed cloak over Daenerys' shoulders. Tywin set sword across their joined hands as witness. The children of the forest ringed clearing, singing in high tones. When vows finished, a shaft of sunlight pierced cloud, ignited dew on leaves into tiny prisms. That night in Great Hall, Tyrion tapped goblet. "I once thought hope a fool's coin," he said, voice raw with mead. "Yet I stand amid wolves and dragons sharing wine. To fools then, for teaching us wisdom." Cheers echoed, cups clinked, music sprang. Dornish drums, northern lyres. Swordsmen clashed for sport, direwolves howled in harmony with Drogon's distant cry. And high above Winterfell's tallest tower, 2 torches were lit, one blue, one gold. Their flames entwined into a single white pillar that neither wind nor night could douse. Across the realm, from Dornish sands to Skagos cliffs, folk looked north and saw that light with their hearts if not their eyes. They felt something shift beyond coins, banners, vendettas. A quiet vow whispered in new spring wind. It said that darkness might always lurk, but need never reign. That ice could shelter warmth. That fire might temper, not devour. That 2 souls, in refusing crowns for crown's sake, had forged a greater throne inside every hearth they vowed to protect. Years later, balladeers would argue which moment sealed the age of the Dawnbreaker. The dragon's first roar, the glacier's collapse, the twin regents' wedding. Scholars would bicker over titles: emperor, queen, protector, prince, warden. Tyrion, old, half-blind, penning final chapter of his memoir, would smile and write, "They were simply guardians." And that was enough. But on that first spring evening, none foresaw songs or scrolls. They were only men and women breathing relief, sharing stew, patching armor, stroking scabbed hounds by roaring fires. Children of Wildling and Southron blood played tag beneath weirwood branches, shrieking laughter into silver night. Seeds planted in thawed furrows germinated. Bells of the night fort told not caution, but celebration, each note scattering remnants of dread into starlight. Ghost trotted through courtyard, tail high, to meet Jon and Daenerys where they watched revels from balcony. Jon scratched the direwolf's ear. Daenerys rested head on Jon's shoulder. "Do you hear it?" she asked. He listened. Clang of hammer on anvil where Gendry forged new steel. Chatter of knights from houses once rivals. Lullaby of breezes stirring banners stitched with lion-wolf dragon crest. He nodded. A song of summer. And beyond, in some hushed corner of world, the night itself, which had once dreamed of eternal rain, stirred then settled, soothed by warmth it could not smother. Ilka. Mist drifted off the hot springs of Winterfell in thin glimmering swaths, coiling between carved granite statues and seeping like warm breath into the pale morning sky. By the flicker of forge fires and the lilt of hammers in distant smithies, dawn revealed itself in increments, first the muted hiss of melted snow on anvils, then the soft chorus of ravens departing the rookery. Finally, the waking hush of a castle that had become the beating heart of a realm in recovery. Jon Snow rose before the first true sunbeam pierced the window casement of the Lord's solar, dressing by muted lamplight while Ghost lay curled beneath the table, ears twitching at dreams of snowdrifts and elk. Sinew still ached from the expedition into the cavern of Night's heart, yet each stretch of tightened muscle told him he lived, and living meant attention to duties. The outer courtyard awaited. Barns to parcel grain from Highgarden's convoys, stables stocked with Dornish sand steeds gifted by Prince Oberyn, granaries charted and counted, and 10,000 small moments that, taken together, were the mortar of peace. With Dark Sister belted across the small of his back and a loose cloak of wool over his shoulders, he strode into the corridor, nodded to gray-cloaked sentries, and made his way along the rampart where wind smelled of cedar shavings and damp loam. He paused at the battlement overlooking the new refugee quarter abutting Winter Town. Rough log cabins dotted the slope like seedlings, their roofs still unfinished, but occupied nonetheless. Former wildlings, small folk from raised holdfasts, dwarfed orphans from the Ironborn raid. In the thoroughfare below, a baker's boy lugged trays of barley scones beside an ironmonger's cart, rattling with pothooks meant for new hearths. But even in bustle Jon saw the scars. A woman with hollow eyes who flinched at every clang. A child wound in layers despite warming temperatures. A bearded clansman missing 2 fingers to frostbite. These were the living debts produced by war, accounts that could never be fully settled. They could only be acknowledged and tended, the way one might lighten a wounded friend's load. And somewhere out beyond a thickening line of spruce and pine, an entire kingdom held its breath to see whether winter's survivors truly knew how to cultivate spring. Below, Lady Brienne of Tarth drilled a mixed cadre of watch recruits. Night's Watch blacks, lion helms, Dornish crimson sashes, and free folk pelts, all moving in unified cadence. Training with dragonglass laced halberds forged to her strict specifications. Sweep, feint, thrust, recover. Each movement punctuated by her calm baritone. Jon felt a quiet pride. 2 years earlier these same men would have met on opposite sides of a battlefield, shackled by heritage to slaughter. Now they listened to Brian's patient corrections, steel turning in harmony. The Watch of the Dawn had become more than an oath. It was a crucible where rivalries smelted down into a new alloy. A soft tread behind him drew Jon from thought. Arya stepped onto the rampart, her stride fluid with the grace no one had once owned, but now guided by the purpose of someone. Sister, guardian, traveler. Needle's lean length rested at her hip. A new Valyrian steel parrying dagger gleamed at the other. She leaned forward on the crenellation beside him, dark curls swirling. "Sansa's hunting quills again," she said. "Maester Tuttle claims the Raven House is empty, but knowing Sansa, she'll charm fresh parchments from thin air, then send invitations for yet another harvest fete." Her smirk softened. "She says the realm could use festivals more than fortresses." "That it could," Jon replied, amused. "But festivals cost barley 3 moons in advance, and Lord Manderley counts grain as if each kernel were a crown. Did you bring news from Essos?" Arya nodded. Ships from Meereen reached White Harbor at dawn. They brought freed healer priests, Red Woman's Order, and the Jade Companions of Volantis. "Have you read the treaty Daenerys signed? Freedom zealots in silk?" A flicker of skepticism glinted in her eyes, but approval followed. "Still, they're eager to share salves that save Frostburn. Robb's northern levies will welcome that." Jon exhaled. Even now, rumors of a deadly blight creeping across the summer sea quickened his heartbeat. Reports of crops blackening before the harvester's blade, of whispering winds that turned cattle delirious, of merchant fleets drifting unmanned into harbor, holds reeking. 2 moons ago Daenerys had dispatched an envoy to scour the free cities for answers. Now these priests arrived bearing techniques to cauterize afflicted earth with alchemic lime before contagion spread. They called it the Grey Sigh. He hoped to the old gods they were overcautious. "Come," Arya urged. "Small council meets soon." She narrowed her eyes at Jon's mismatched cloak and tunic. An unconscious echo of black and silver. At least pretend you're the man who married a queen. Jon chuckled. If I am to be consort and warden, I'll dress as I please. The queen insists. He cast one last glance over the valley. Then he followed Arya down the stone stairs, each step resonating with a memory of footfalls he would never hear again. Robb's laugh, Benjen's jocular anecdotes, Maester Luwin's measured advice. Amid ghosts and living, he carved his path. In the refurbished library hall, a space once cluttered by dust-thick scrolls, but now bright with stained glass daisies, courtesy of Marguerite Tyrell's artisans, the small council sat assembled. Daenerys at the oval pine table's head, hair braided with thin strands of black ribbon. Tyrion to her right with quill poised, ledger already splotched. Sansa to her left, a stack of parchments on trade routes, fanned beside her. Jaime lounged near a hearth, his new gilded prosthetic resting on knee. To Jon's mild surprise, Grand Maester Connington had come from King's Landing, dusty satchel at his feet, eyes bright for one so harried by travel. Good, Daenerys murmured when Jon and Arya took seats. Quorum reached. We begin with the seas. Her gaze flicked to Davos. The smuggler-turned hand recounted fleet inventories, longships harrying western channels, Lysine corsairs spotted near stepstones. And, most pressing, the sudden silence of 3 grain vessels due from Old Town. In good weather they hug the coast, he said, pointing to the coastal sketch on a stretched calfskin parchment. Last Raven left the beacon of Dragonstone 10 days past. If storms took a knee, someone would have spied wreckage by now. His finger jabbed a stylized kraken north of Fair Isle, which means Ironborn. Oberyn's eyes glittered. My men captured a Reaver scout 2 nights ago near the stony shore. He bragged Euron Crow's Eye enslaves Leviathan stitched of coral and bone. Protested chuckles circled the table. Oberyn shrugged. Perhaps drunken fancy. Yet his scars told of deeper fires. They have some alchemic secret. Man, Tyrion scrawled notes. We starve without those grain ships by next solstice. The Reach surplus binds all this. He grimaced. 9 years ago I'd not lose sleep over rivermen eating boiled moss, but we are one storehouse now. Sansa unfolded her parchment set. House Tyrell pledges an additional 1/3 tithe if port stays safe. Lord Wyman's millers can grind day and night, but we need hulls to ferry flour. She placed a letter marked by the merman. They fear sabotage along the White Knife. Jon asked, how soon can the royal fleet escort convoys? Davos thought, King's Landing awaits major refit. Southern galleys will need 3 moons. He examined charts. Quicker. Send Black Betha and her sisters, swift but shallow draft, to run escort on 2 outer routes. 2 pincer arcs, one hugging the Broken Arm, one hugging Skagos, southern lee. Reavers can't raid 3 directions at once. A risk, Tyrion noted, but acceptable if we pair with the river barges. He tapped the ledger. I'll draft funds. Done, Daenerys said. Issue the command. Next agenda. The gray sigh. Connington produced sealed vials of ash-colored spores captured at Lys. It infects grain blossoms first, he explained. An invisible rot that spreads into harvest and through inhalation weakens lung and will. We believe necromantic residue from the night's heart warp. Something of that void drifted on high airs, reached lowlands. His hands shook faintly. We can neutralize early fields with quicklime and copper dust. But Southron lords must comply. Burn crops to save realm. Tyrion groaned. Convincing House Redwine to torch their vineyards? He gestured. I owe them a cask. Sansa straightened. We persuade with forgiveness. Offer seed grain from Old Town vaults in exchange for prompt action. Besides, few vines near full bloom in present chill. It buys time. Persuasion or a decree, Jon said. Either way we cannot wait. He looked to Daenerys. She nodded. Draft royal edict. All fields showing gray veining to be scoured, replaced with northern barley. The Regency will compensate at double harvest value, payable in iron or future trade credits. She locked eyes with Arya. And our quiet hands will ensure compliance. Arya smirked. Needle glinted. The council turned to ravens from the citadel. Tyrion summarized. Archmaesters confirm flux in Weirnet resonance. 8 heart trees shifting root patterns, but none destabilizing. They request Bran's presence for lecture. He smiled at Jon. I doubt Bran will leave his ravens, but perhaps he'll send a few feathers. Jon's mind wandered to his youngest brother, now fondly titled the Green Sage. Bran rarely moved from the rooftop observatory ringed with carved weirwood totems. Most evenings Jon watched twin ravens perched on Bran's shoulders, pupils swirling opal as Bran warged through flocks spanning thousands of leagues. That gift had saved them at the cavern. Now it charted sea lanes, mapped storms, glimpsed krakens. The final order of business came edged with tension. Cersei's fate. Tyrion read a fresh dispatch. She remains confined in King's Landing Red Keep, but rumors swirl. Vintner's swordsman pledged to free her in the Queen of Thorns' name. Ludicrous, but gold flows. Jaime? Jaime's mouth set grim. I visited her once. She's calmer, yet she will not bend. She claims young Tommen, kept at Casterly Rock, must rule. His golden hand flexed. Father, you know her heart. Tywin steepled fingers. Her heart is granite veined with wildfire. He surveyed room. My daughter will remain under guard until the realm stands unshakable. When grain flows and ice retreats, we will host a great moot, and the lords will judge her. His tone softened a fraction. She is Lannister. Her shame is ours, but justice must prevail. Sansa caught Jon's gaze. There had been a time vengeance would have satisfied her. Now justice sufficed. Jon inclined his head almost imperceptibly. Agreed. Council adjourned. Scrolls commanded to outriders, ravens inked with new edicts, and by mid-morning the courtyard thrummed with urgency. Arya vanished, likely to test the new parrying dagger on straw posts or over the neck. Oberyn loitered, spinning a pomegranate before flicking it to an urchin perched on a barrel. Daenerys took Ghost walking through burgeoning herb beds behind a greenhouse. Dothraki Farrier's idea. Tyrion retreated to his turret to tweak logistics. Jon slipped away to the Godswood for a moment's quiet before the midday call to archery demonstration. Inside the old grove, winter roses budded with spring disbelief, their soft lavender petals capped by hoarfrost that refused to melt fully. Jon knelt before the heart tree, bowed his head, felt its loyalties hum in sap. Closing his eyes, he let memory surge. The silent caverns, the shattering walkers, the ache of Lyanna's letters heavy in his pack. He did not worship in the manner of maesters or high septons. He listened. The old gods seldom replied, but their hush comforted. A twig snapped. Sansa's light footfall. She approached, offering a small wry smile. I have something, she said, extending a folded parchment. An invitation from the Tyrell mariners. They plan a midsummer voyage to show cities across the narrow sea our new unity. They want queen and king. She lifted her brows. I think they want dragons to awe Bravos bankers. Jon accepted letter. I will ask Daenerys. He rose, brushing needles from knees. Travel may help calm tensions. Shared ships, shared meals. Sansa's gaze returned to roses. I remember when I hated the North's prickling cold. Now I worry sweet breezes may erode what frost taught us. She hugged herself. Just keep people believing. He squeezed her shoulder. Stories will help. You're good at those. She chuckled warmly. Not so good, but determined. Deeper in the Godswood, a raven perched and croaked 2 harsh calls. Jon tracked its flight to the stone fence. Bran's voice filled his mind. No words, only a stirring. East. East. Something there trembled the Weirnet, no longer icy but strangely warm. That afternoon, Daenerys oversaw dragon aerial drills south of the wall. Sycazares rose with a guttural roar. Drogon spinning loops to herd stray clouds. Viserion loosed gouts of flame that curled golden around icicle towers, erected as target spires. Jon stood below with shield and torch, observing. Through the shimmer he caught glimpses of children of the forest, perched in spruces, faces calm, singing high notes that wove under dragon screeches. A lullaby of ancient synergy. He recalled Aemon's prophecy. Dragons must learn songs of leaf and snow if they are to endure an age beyond conquering. Today those notes filled sky. Evening cast violet light when ravens thundered toward ramparts. Bran staggered onto parapet, face drawn but resolute. He summoned Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion. They met beneath red blaze of a beacon freshly lit. In the east, Bran whispered, voice trembling, "See if this stirs memory." He pressed fingers to Jon's temple. Images flooded. Burning vineyards, smoke that whispered, steel giants marching from old Valyrian ruins under banners of a gray mountain split by red seam. A city's silhouette of shining towers half buried in black glass. The smoking sea's edge. Then, the unmistakable silhouette of Euron Greyjoy at prow of a monstrous vessel, eyes newly pale, a swirling sigil etched into his chest with frost and scorch both. Daenerys punched the stone merlon so hard a sliver cracked. "I burned that man's fleet near Fair Isle. He welcomes dark allies now." Tyrion's quill hovered in air. If the Great Over's final breath clings to him, he might have forged an unholy pact. Jon frowned. The weir net locked the old void, but threads remain. Euron pries cracks. How long? Daenerys asked Bran. 3 moons before he drifts into summer sea. He'll sow rot in Essos Lanes first. Bran touched a scar at his brow. But he seeks dragonbone artifacts, Dragonlord's tombs under the smoking sea. Keys to waking thralls of fire, not ice. Daenerys' jaw clenched. If he twists fire as the walkers twisted ice. Jon gripped her wrist. Then we intercept. Tyrion exhaled. A 3-front realm. Greyjoy raiders in west, plague in south. Crow's Eye in east. We need allies across the sea. Daenerys gazed at sunset. We sail with the Tyrell mission sooner than planned. Jon nodded. And arm Bravos galleys with dragonglass flame breakers. Bran sagged. Sansa hurried to his side, easing him onto a bench. "Brother, rest." But Bran's gaze slid beyond them. "Remember," he murmured, "every victory births new storms. The wheel circles, though its spokes have changed." Then his eyes closed, and ravens perched along the wall stilled. That night Jon stood at the map-room table while Davos laid roots. Winterfell to White Harbor, across Bight, hugging Skagos to evade Krakens. 20 ships, 4 Tyrell supply carracks, 3 Dornish war galleys, 6 river barges, 2 ironborn prizes manned by reformed reavers sworn to Yara Greyjoy, 3 Nymerian sand ship sloops promised by Oberyn, and 2 of King's Landing's sleek black dromons. Dragons would fly above, weather permitting, while a squadron of griffin riders from the Vale offered skyguard. Daenerys entered, cloak swirling with residual heat. Her brow glistened. The dragons can fly one horizon beyond. Any farther in air, updrafts over smoking sea vex their wings. But Sekizares and Drogon will manage. She pulled free a heavy pouch. It rattled with black stone. Valyrian pyrolite bombs, wildfire simmering inside dragonglass shells. Qyburn swears they ignite only upon my voice command. Jon offered half a smile. Qyburn swears many things. Tyrion oversaw every step, she assured. Then a flicker of sorrow crossed her face. I left a clutch of dragon eggs at Dragonstone, deep in vault cooled by seawater channels. Unhatched, still. I fear Crow's Eye covets them. If he aims for dragon relics, those eggs stand in peril. Jon pressed finger to the fleet diagram. We split. Main fleet sails to Bravos with message of unity. Covert strike. 3 fastest ships slip south around Valyria to secure Dragonstone caches. I and Oberyn lead strike. Tyrion's voice wafted from doorway. And my crossbow stays home? He entered, eyes twinkling but voice serious. Jon Daenerys. Risk management dictates I accompany. I've survived dragons, ice demons, my sister's wrath. I can survive a sea cough. Jon folded arms. Someone must navigate the fractured courtiers left behind. Renly and Sansa manage well, Tyrion countered. He patted leather satchel. Besides, I already drafted import contracts for Taroshi lime and Pentoshi copper. I need signatures. He winked. Daenerys shook her head but smiled. Very well, you fly. Preparations accelerated. By the third sunrise, sails emblazoned with united crest unfurled. Three-headed wolf dragon on split field of silver and red. Winterfell's courtyards bustled, Tyrell quartermasters shouting, Dornish spears rattling, Ironborn mended rigging, free folk bartering bundles of mammoth jerky for southern wine. Arya leapt from rigging to rigging, already at home among masts. Ghosts prowled decks, eyes wary of gulls. On Voyage's eve, Jon revisited Lyanna's crypt beneath Winterfell. Candles glowed amber, revealing her marble likeness clutching winter roses. He knelt, placed fresh bloom cut that morning. Mother, he whispered, voice echoing off cold stone. I sail south to guard what you died to protect. If God's will, I return with spring secure. He closed eyes, and for a flicker he swore he felt a kiss of perfumed breeze, improbable in Tomb Air. He rose lighter. Before dawn, the fleet slipped from White Harbor. Frost fog danced on steel prows. On quarterdeck of flagship, Maiden's Roar, Jon and Daenerys stood, cloaks snapping, Tyrion regretting each wave's lurch beside a barrel. Oberyn lounged at rail, spear across knees. Drogon and Sekizares wheeled overhead, wing beats straubing light across sea surface like mirrors of new sun. The horizon before them glimmered rose gold, but in far distance, bruised thunderheads loomed. A smear of onyx clouds shaped like vacant crowns. There waited Euron Greyjoy, the man who had stared into ice and demanded it temper flame. As Winterfell's outline shrank behind them, bells tolled along ramparts. One for fortune in grain, one for cure in lime, a third for journeys begun. Yet a final note rang low, almost mournful, acknowledging risk and the hearts remaining ashore. Sansa watched from watchtower window, slender as river reed, Bran beside her with ravens perching, whispering of currents in unseen roots. And under that bell's lingering hum, the realm's tapestry extended one more thread, risking breakage but weaving hope across seas. Days turned to shards of water shimmer. The main convoy peeled east under Davos, hulls creaking with wheat, while the strike flotilla arrowed south, hugging broken reefs of stepstones. Sea spray salted cheeks. Tyrion regained color, quoting lines from Grafton's nautical proverb. He who steers to star alone finds no harbor. Arya taught freefolk archers to loose arrows from mast spars balanced barefoot. Oberyn sparred with Jaime, ironwood staves cracking in rhythm, nearly musical. Each evening Daenerys communed with dragons, coaxing wing tucks for long glides saving strength. A fortnight out, fog thick as fleece enveloped them, entering broken sea. Lanterns hung from yard arms, glowed muted green. Tyrion shivered. I've read of these mists, he murmured. Breath of doom. They say if inhaled too long, lungs turn to wet ash. He wrapped scarf. Jon scanned waters for silhouettes. Nymeria's sandship Shadowhound ghosted nearby, sails reefed. Suddenly, a horn's low moan broke stillness. Longship signal. Euron scouts. The first reaver vessel emerged like an apparition. Jagged figurehead carved as screaming skull, hull reinforced with barbed coral plates. Purple flames sputtered in metal baskets along deck, casting sickly glow on masked rowers. A topmast, sigil of bleeding eye within storm ring. A new banner Euron fashioned to herald marriage of ice and flame. Arya's arrow hissed, striking crow's nest sentinel through visor. Chaos snapped. Battle unfurled. Firepots lobbed from sandship's sword, bursting into emerald whorls on reaver sails. Dragonglass bolts thudded into coral hulls, releasing inner rods of wildfire that ignited, the hulls burning blue. Yet, some flames refused water, churning even under waves. Euron's dark chemistry. Dragons swooped, breathing incandescent torrents that glassed seawater into shimmering plates. Smoke roiled into toxic shapes, but Sekizares' wing buffeted to clear. Triton-hued flames licked at Maiden's Roar prow before Jon hacked free groaning plank to jettison burning tar. Reavers plunged long hooks into hulls trying to lash. Arya severed lines with swirling Valyrian steel dagger. Distant horns multiplied. Silhouette of monstrous worship, the silence loomed. Euron's flagship, decked with flayed sails of pale leather. Its prow split waves, golden kraken eyes fitted with burning coals. Upon its mast perched Euron himself, arms spread like cormorant, chest scar, etched with spiral glyph now fused by iron bands. He laughed, wind carrying chilling delight. He lifted a staff crowned by a shard of blue-black crystal, the last remnant of great Ulver's heart, perhaps. With gesture sky churned, wind reversed, dragons faltered in buffeting air. Daenerys spurred Drogon into steep dive. Flames hammered silence's rigging yet parted around invisible barrier. Shadowy dome. Tyrion gaped. "Blood magic shield," he shouted. "The shard feeds?" They needed ground, but sea offered none. Jon read Daenerys' glance, cut the source. He gripped rail, voice booming through speaking horn. "Board her!" Jaime and Oberyn answered, grappling lines arcing across churning water. With ghostly howl, Nymeria's sandship speared alongside silence, ramming. Planks groaned. Euron leaped to deck, swinging blade etched with runes that hissed like exposed bone. Jaime met him with gold-sleeved sword. Sparks flew, echoing thunder overhead. Jon climbed rope net onto Silence's deck, flanked by free folk. Euron's sailors wore masks forged of iron welded to flesh. They fought like revenants, oblivious to wounds. Each blow of dragon glass shattered a mask. Black smoke wafted from cavities. Arya danced between lumbering brutes, opening throats, while Oberyn's spear blurred. Jaime dueled Euron, footwork measured. Yet Euron's blade pulsed frost and flame, sapping Jaime's vigor. A slash opened his thigh. Jaime staggered. Jon charged, long claw shearing through revenant ribs. He closed on Euron. Facing him, the Kraken Lord grinned, eyes wet void. "Bastard prince," he cried. "Come taste the god whisper." He thrust staff's crystal toward Jon. The shard flared, memory of Walker cold flooding air. Jon's breath crystallized. Ghost leaped, clamped jaws on Euron's arm. Euron laughed, smashed staff against Wolf's skull, sending Ghost skidding. Jon lunged, parried Frostblade, sparks turning to amber motes. Daenerys landed on deck behind, dark sister whistling. Together they pressed. Crystal pulsed red-blue, but cracks spidered under their crossing blades. Euron roared. He headbutted Jon, spun to slash Daenerys' side. Steel glanced off, scaled cuirass. She answered with downward chop. Long claw pierced Euron's thigh. The Kraken howled. Jaime, bleeding but dogged, swept Frostblade aside, leaving Euron open. Oberyn hurled spear. It drove crystal shard deep into deck, pinning staff. Blue flame spat. Euron shrieked, power tether severed. Shield overhead flickered. In the same breath, Drogon's fire crashed down. Crystal exploded, releasing wail of midnight things. Every revenant sagged, lifeless. Silence's keel groaned as if sighing. Euron staggered, charred skin splitting. He hissed, "I am tied unending." Jon pushed him to prow, blade tip at chest. "Tied Zeb." He thrust. Frostblade clattered. Euron toppled, vanishing into black sea where dragon's fire met depths, water steaming. Purple flames winked out. Silence shuddered, nearly broke. Crews scrambled to detach grapples. Nymeria's ship pulled away, ropes severed. Drogon lifted Jon and Daenerys, talons gentle. On deck, Jaime collapsed. Oberyn hauled him to safety, binding wound. Tyrion watched wide-eyed from Maiden's roar, relief melting into awed grin. Without shard, Reaver Armada faltered. Some hulls smoldered, sinking. Others surrendered, throwing weapons into foam, free of necromancy. Ironborn survivors knelt, raising salt-calloused hands. In midday sun, steam columns rose like pyres of strange dawn. For 6 days fleet stabilized survivors, patched hulls, and limped to Dragonstone. There, they found eggs intact, but vault doors bore fresh gouges. Tyrion studied claw marks. Someone tried, but failed. He smiled at Daenerys. your stone guardians worked. From high battlement overlooking smoking sea, Jon breathed briny air tinged with obsidian fumes. Daenerys placed a hand on smooth egg she carried, warmth pulsing. "They will hatch," she whispered, "but not as weapons. As guardians if needed." Jon nodded. "May they never need." Back north, Bran sensed the shard's destruction. Weirwood leaves fluttered, though wind slept. He smiled faintly, knowing cycle halted another turn. Winter's memory eased. Spring advanced. Fields once gray sighed green. Lime and copper dust neutralized spores. Grain ships escorted by Davos docked safely, holds brimming. Word spread. The strangle? Gray sigh halted. Farmers cheered. In King's Landing, bells pealed. Even Cersei, hearing distant clamor, closed eyes with complicated sorrow. At Midsummer's first full moon, Queen Daenerys and King Protector Jon returned to Winterfell Harbor. Thousands lined ramparts, lanterns shimmering. Maesters recorded the saga of the burning sea. Poets already crafting stanzas of dragon wings against purple flame. Jon disembarked last, helping Tyrion, who clutched cask of Myrish red, appropriated from Reaverhold. Feasts followed, tables heaped with honeyed hare, lemon cakes, Dornish peppers, northern root stew. Musicians from summer isles strummed lullabies. Free folk drummed sealskin rhythms. Children danced in circles around statues of direwolf and dragon entwined. Later that night, Jon and Daenerys slipped into Godswood, sat beneath Hearttree, where petals no longer wept only red, but sprouted streaks of soft green. A sign the tree lived anew. Jon whispered future hopes. Vineyards in White Harbor's sheltered dell, windmills along Gifts rivers, libraries with scrolls in 6 tongues. Daenerys spoke of hatcheries where stable hands trained to lull dragons with children of forest songs, of a council of healers against next plague, of minted coins bearing twin sigils, but no king's visage, symbolizing realm over ruler. They clasped hands, felt pulse of sap beneath bark, pulse of blood in wrists. In that hush, they understood realms are not saved by swords or fire alone, but by hands that choose to build again and again in the face of ruin. And so, with dawn curling, rose fingers across newly thawed sky, they rose and walked toward the echo of distant hammers, toward construction of a hall where young and old, high and low, could speak across benches without fear, where the realm's true throne would be a long table of shared wood, where new stories would begin. Years later, perhaps, children playing in Godswood would hear faint rustle of leaves and imagine it whispered the names of those who chose hope. And maybe they'd run to walls to watch dragons gliding on warm thermals, or to harbor to greet ships heavy with grain. And somewhere beyond far horizon, another challenge would gather, as challenges must. But for that moment, under that sunrise, the realm breathed a single breath of harmony. So the wheel that had bound 7 kingdoms to centuries of strife did not shatter in one thunderclap, nor vanish like mist. It simply slowed, grew new spokes, and turned on kinder bearings, its creak less a cry of agony, and more a steady hum of promised tomorrows.